GodFest. GodFest. GodFest.
All right, family. Thank you for your patience. Some technical difficulties with Chief Topcatz and his computer. We was trying to troubleshoot, but everything turned out all right. We good. You can hear me, right, Topcatz?
Yeah, we good.
Okay. All right. So, family, yeah, thank you for your patience once again because we got a very important show tonight. Been hearing about this brother for quite some time. You know, everything happens in divine timing. And I just did the show with Rod Hayes the other day, and I told y'all I talked to Rod Hayes. I'm talking to him on the phone, and I'm researching my family history on South Carolina. And Rod Hayes said, "Yo, you know who you need to holler at, Brother Rich? You need to holler at Chief Topcatz." And I was like, people been telling me about the brother for a while. I said, you know what, Rod? I said, I'm gonna holler at the brother. It's time for me to holler at the brother. So Rod connected us. I didn't have the brother's contact, but Rod connected us about 2 days later. So here we are today, my brother. You making your debut on the channel. Welcome to Black Magic 363, the legendary Big Chief Topcatz. Welcome, my brother.
Man, that was salute, bro, Rich. You know, it's an honor to be on the show, man. I'm talking about I've been watching you since used to Dick Gregory shows. You know, where you had to you wouldn't say nothing while he talked. You'd just say,
yeah, you know, yeah. Curse you out if you say something.
How long I've been watching?
Oh man, that's a long time. So, brother, man, so what everybody, a lot of people, you know, have been telling me about you for years. Can you tell the people on my channel, since this is your first time, tell them a little bit about yourself before we get into, I know you got a dynamic presentation. Who exactly are you? Why you call yourself the legendary Big Chief Topcatz? Just introduce yourself to my family real quick before we get started.
Yeah, man, you know, I'm a simple, regular person, man. American Indian, you know, my family come from a chieftain line down in Texas, and the oldest reservation in Texas. So that was, you know, instilled in me. And my aunt, who been doing this since she was 17 years old, passed it down to me like her grandma passed it down to her. So I heard a lot of information about the family. Came online during the pandemic talking about it, and you know, it took it, you know, ended up going a little further than I thought it would, you know. But yeah, I'm American Indian historian, author, you know, lecturer, debater, you name it, everything American.
Indeed. So, you know, when you say, because of how we've been raised, when you say American Indian, people look at you like, is this dude delusional? You don't look like an American. You look like a regular nigga. You look like my cousin, my uncle, you know what I'm saying, my brother, my pops, or whoever. But people will think, brothers like yourself who say, I'm an American Indian, they will think you're delusional. And I guess that will bring us into the presentation tonight. There's so much, let me just say this. So much has been being uncovered about Black Americans in the last couple of years. I've seen something that I've never seen before. I've been in this consciousness thing for a long time, my brother. And ever since I was in it, I seen brothers and sisters embrace the red, black, and green. And I seen brothers and sisters always talk about being African, being Pan-African. And the last 5 years, it was just been like online. So many brothers and sisters have been talking about how it's about America. We from here. We not from Africa. It's been such a change in consciousness from when I first got involved. It's an amazing thing to see. And I've never seen Black Americans have so much pride now than I've ever seen before since I came into this movement. So it's a beautiful thing to see Black Americans have pride in this land and starting to reclaim this land. And I remember there was a time, I just remember the Morris brothers talking about being indigenous to America. Now I see so many different brothers and sisters talking about it. With that being said, man, we would like to know about the Seminole Wars as well as what makes us the real American Indians. If you could explain that further. But I'm gonna pass the mic to you. Let you do your presentation, and I'll come on in later on toward the end. I'm gonna get some questions.
I want to say this before we go into it. I remember when I first got here, like you say, people will laugh at you or look at you crazy if you say you was American Indian. And that was something I took real personal. And it's a lot of people paved the way for this. I ain't never really get my credit for the time when I came in the game.
Yeah.
Whether it be from FBA, whether it be from Freedmen movement, to you see they all doing their genealogy now. FBAs, Freedmen, everywhere you look, everybody doing their genealogy. They knowing their history. If it was the reparation movement, a lot of those people, came in contact with me. I'll say that. So, to hear you say that message is just spread like that, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not looking for no credit or nothing. The real people who was there know, you know what I mean? But a lot of them was influenced by that message that I had,
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent, man. Excellent. So with that being said, man, let's get into this, man. The Seminole Wars. Before you start, let me show this because when you go on Wikipedia before you do what you do, let me just tell you what they say about the Seminole Wars.
Okay.
And then we're gonna get into some real.
Yeah, there you go.
Some real deal info about the Seminole Wars, but we're gonna see what's out there, and this is why it's important to have brothers like this on the show, so the brother could clean up the mess of misinformation that's being made on the internet. All right, so let's get to this. First of all, when they show the Seminole Wars, they never show. Let me show this first. When you type in the Seminole Wars, you get images of people that look like. You see this image right here?
Yeah.
You get images like this. So when people are studying the Seminole Wars, a brother that looks like you.
Yeah, they're trying to find us in the story.
Yeah, me and you are the last thing. You see this right here, y'all?
Yeah. We got to talk about him too.
We talk about him. Who's this character here do you know?
That's my ancestor, Osceola.
Okay.
Now, that Osceola is not his real name. His real name is William or Billy Paul.
Okay.
In the story, they say as he got older, they gave him the name, but that's wrong. But we'll talk about that's in the presentation.
Yeah, we're gonna get into all that. So let me just read this real quick, and then the brother's gonna get into his presentation on the Seminole Wars, something that's very important. Okay. The Seminole Wars, also known as the Florida Wars, were a series of 3 military conflicts between the United States and the Seminoles that took place in Florida between about 1816 and 1858. The Seminoles are a Native American nation which coalesced in northern Florida during the early 1700s when the territory was still a Spanish colonial possession. Tensions grew between the Seminoles and American settlers in the newly independent United States in the early 1800s, mainly because enslaved people regularly fled from Georgia into Spanish Florida, prompting slave owners to conduct slave raids across the border. A series of cross-border skirmishes escalated into the First Seminole War, when American General Andrew Jackson led an excursion into the territory over Spanish objections. Jackson forces destroyed several Seminole, Miccosukee, and Black Seminole towns, as well as captured Fort San Marcos and briefly occupied Pensacola before withdrawing in 1818. The U.S. and Spain soon negotiated the transfer of the territory with the Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819. I think I'm going to end it there and let the brother start talking. It goes on and on into the First Seminole War, the Second Seminole War. They say that's the longest one, 1835 to 1842, and the third one broke out in 1855. All right. With that, they said the Seminoles War, the Seminole Wars, let me highlight this, were the longest and most expensive and deadly of all American Indian wars. Wow. This is something we're not taught about, my brother. It's a blessing to have you on here. I'm gonna pass the microphone to you, my brother. Go ahead. Legendary, ladies and gentlemen, the legendary Big Chief Topcatz. Do your thing, my brother.
All right. I can see my screen.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
All right.
Hold up. Where is this?
Okay, bet. So, like you said, in one of my messages for us to find ourselves in the story, like you said, the brother said, a lot of us have been, given our identity or fed the narrative. A lot of people rep the red, black, and green, or any other of these. I won't disrespect them, but I'll say schools of thought. You feel me? But we lost what we got from home, and we took the word from others that was outside of us. Mm-hmm. If we wanted to know about ourselves, the best people would the answer, the primaries would be the people that we come from, mothers and fathers in our family. So we're gonna go back, like he said, people see us today and they'll laugh and say, "Ha ha, you're not the Indian." But if we go back to the definition of American in 1828, it applied to the Aboriginal copper-colored races found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. Now right here, a brother named Aaron Holt in the National Archives, he stated, it only takes 3 generations to lose a piece of oral family history. Want to avoid losing these precious family stories passed down through the generations, the story must be purposely, accurately repeated over and over again through generations to be preserved. And so a lot of us come here today and we're speaking oral stories that come from the family, and it's not being respected because institutions and people who was brought to us to be heroes or master teachers wasn't working in our best interest. And so we're gonna talk about that, a little bit of that today. Let's go in. So originally when Brother Rich we spoke, he said he wanted to speak about the Gullah Wars.
Right.
And I said, well, it really wasn't the Gullah Wars, it was the Seminole Wars. Now, a lot of people push back on that as well because Seminole has a date, which is 1816, as we just seen, which is true. Seminole is not a tribe, it's not a bloodline. When we go into Gullah will be the Africanized version of it. I know a lot of people have a lot to say, but we're finna walk through here. I want y'all to notice these dates, 1739, 1858. So if the Seminoles come in 1816, it'd be impossible for them to be speaking about 1739. So what is going to come? Like I said, the Seminole they're a confederation of people who banded together. Now we're going to, let's walk. Like I said, this Gullah story has been Africanized to associate with the transatlantic slave trade. Well, when we come here to Origins of the Gullah by Joseph Wafala, this is Yale University, he says, the Gullah people are descendants of slaves who worked on rice plantations, South Carolina and Georgia. They still live in rural communities. He also states that the Gullah retain many elements of African language and culture. Very important. I want y'all to circle that name, Joseph Apollo. We're going to come back to him. Now, as we see with the wars, 1739, 1858, the Seminole Wars are going to end in 1858. So this is how we know they're associating the two. Now, let's go to over here. Let's see what the Africans say. This is the essays towards literary anthropology of Nigeria. And they asked the same question we're asking. Who were the Gullah or Geechee? Ideas of origin named Gullah seem to be guesswork. Does it derive from Angola, like a lot of these Pan-African master teachers told us, off of West Africa, or is it Gullah, the ethnic group that's in Liberia? Now they go on to say it is difficult to say why, because here the elements of African heritage cannot so easily be identified with any particular part of Africa. So it is impossible for the Gullah to be African because they cannot identify any particular part of Africa as once affected by the slave trade, they say. many slaves ended up in North America did not come straight from Africa. They came by way of the Caribbean islands. And so it also goes on to say it is easier to say the name Geechee came from apparently from the nearby Ogeechee River. Now, the Ogeechee River, what's the Ogeechee River? The Ogeechee River sits in the state of Georgia. Okay, state of Georgia. And then who inhabited? Ogeechee Indians. Now they say Ogeechee may be a Muskogee word that means river. Now you had the people called the Yuchi Indians who stayed there. And now, and right here it comes to say, some scholars have drawn a connection between the river name, the Gullah Geechee, for the Gullah people who inhabit the coast of Georgia. What you mean the Gullah people? Well, it's a place that's called Gullah. The area of Georgia was called Gullah. Now they'll come back later and tell us to say the word Wally. Why would we say Wally? If we was Brother Richie, you look at that, what would you take Wally or Gullah out of that? But you didn't even have to answer. We're gonna let the people walk. So we're gonna show right here what is Wally. What is Gullah? The Golden Isle of Gullah, Georgia. All right, when DeSoto came here, this was the richest place on the world. This was the real Gold Coast. That's why 1829 there was a gold rush in Georgia. Okay, the Mayans also mined gold and also mined blue out of the areas of Georgia. It was occupied by American Indians already. Once the Mayans pushed in, they also started to come in and breed with the women, and some of them set up locations there. Now here's the Gullah people. They are Native American chieftain Mississippi culture. Okay, they date them back to 1150 AD. Prehistoric Gullah cultures is the Savannah phase. All right. Now this is the area right here that we're gonna be speaking on in topic. These are some of the areas in the Gullah, some of the towns in the Gullah. In 1597, there was a rebellion with the Gullah against the Franciscans. Okay, and this was a civil war between the Spanish fractions. So when we're speaking about the Spanish, another thing that they taught us through this Pan-African story was something called white supremacy or Wati supremacy. So in order to push this, they wanted to tell us that our slave masters were white people and that, we were taken advantage of or in a docile position. But the truth of the matter is, this is King Philip of Spain. This would be the guy in control of what is said to be the transatlantic slave trade. It would be a melanated man as well. So one thing I brought to the game, I call it Big Six to the board. When we identify the Black European, we have to identify that the people that came here from Europe did look like us. So let's walk. The furs to Texas, how we know that the Spanish were melanated. Well, this guy right here, this coming out of Prairie View A&M, the first African American in history come from Africa is Esteban the Moor. Now they're coming from North Africa. It's a difference. So we've been fed a West African story, but when we're talking about Florida, we're talking about this because there's going to be the first set in 1526 to 1565. Well, these conquistadors that's going to come, what did it say right here? Black conquistadors were as much part of exploration of America as their Spanish counterparts. So this wasn't YT people who did this. These are the Africans that they're going to speak about that's going to come into this area into Florida. Ponce de Leon, you're going to get St. Augustine, which would be what they'll call the first city here. Well, that was occupied by the Timucuan people. Now, here's the Timucuan people right here. They're known in history. They have what you call blackamoor art in European museums. This coming out of German museum. Now, in the Green Vault, the statuette is actually based on images of indigenous Americans. And this is Big Sack, who was actually mixed with Peruvian and Timucuan. Now, right here, we go to Jason B. Palmer for God Sacrifice of Native American Involvement in the Construction of Castillo San Dan Marcos. We see that the Appalachians, Timucuans, and the Gullahs toiled over 24 years and built this Castillo San Dan Marcos. Now, this Hispanic settlement is going to be important. I'm setting it up right now, so we're in Florida with it. The Timucuan will also rebel in 1656. Now we're getting off the Gullah Geechee corridor, what they call it today, since the 1980s, okay? Because this is not an old story. We're going to get to it. Now, what is being left out? So these nations here, we're going back in the 1500s, and we're going to go to this sea island, this corridor. There's no nation called a Gullah Geechee here. All right, so we have tribes in South Carolina is the Hoya. We had the Esquimalt, who were the largest, the Edisto, the Mayam, and you also had the Coosa. Now, this is the coast right here. This is 1562, 1751. And you can see here's the Esquimalt right here. These are the tribes. It took the Spanish 8 attempts before they actually settled. So they lost all those battles to them. Also, 1563, Rabant came here with the French, the Huguenots, settled Temuco land. They got ran off the block. That was called Fort Caroline. So we're going to push through here. Now, later on, anthropologist named Franz Boas they're going to start putting labels on people based off their geography. So they're not going to go by the original tribe or nation that they're called. They're going to name them. So we get a people called the Kasaba in this area of what we call Charleston or the Charleston. Why is Charleston so important? Because the Spanish had Spain. So South Carolina would be occupied by these Indians, but they had an international port there called Port Royal today. We'll get to that. So we're speaking about the Low Country. These people will be identified as Kasabas. Now, the Esquimals will go to war right here. The Edistos, and they all go to war in Carolina, the Gullah on the southeast coast between Savannah and Altamar River. Now, let's walk. Now, to set this up, when the British come into play, they're going to go to Virginia. So we done set up. We went through Georgia, established Georgia as Gullah. Now, in the Ogeechee. Now, we go to Florida. We see the tribes down in Florida, the Spanish, and we're going to come over here to the English. 1603, King James united the crown. May 14, 1604, 1607, they get a settlement. 1606, they get the Virginia Company of London. All of these guys are melanated people. This is something that the teachers before us have left out the story. Now, as we get into it, we see King James. He's going to be over Virginia. Well, African story is going to be tied to that. This is what the people did to us. They're going to put an African story on it. One of the most recent is the 1619 Project, okay, by Nicole Hannah Jones. Well, she said that 20 odd Africans came over here on boats. Well, if we go to the primary resource, right, Image 267 Records Virginia Company 1606, Miscellaneous Records of Virginia Company, what we find out is that these people are going to come from the West Indies, okay? The trail, both horses buried, they're going to come from the West Indies. And right here, he brought not a thing but 20 and odd Negroes with the governor Cape Merchant about the versatile at the best rate. He had large and excellent range of purchase in the West Indies, not Africa. Somebody came back and wrote an African story on this. But when we go to the records of the Virginia Company, right here, this library coming primary source, page 243, we stamping everything. What I'm saying is this transatlantic slave trade was a hoax. What really happened was Europeans were sent over here. And the Europeans that sent them look like us. And the Europeans that were sent also were melanated people. Let's walk through it. Colonial America Works, Herbert Applebaum, right? So page 9. He speak about them bringing over 300 to 400 servants. This the English migrating their people over. 600,000 between 1650 and 1780. Most migrants went to the West Indies. Some 2% went to New England, and so they're gonna spread them out. Now we're gonna go to a primary, and I'm walking it down. I'm finna set it up. I'm doing this for a reason. Now, progress of the nation in civilization, productive wealth, and population. On page 581. The governor of Virginia town was Berkeley. Berkeley is gonna say his population in Virginia was 40,000. 2,000 slaves, 6,000 were white indentured servants. The importation of slaves did not exceed 2 or 3 cargoes in 7 years. So it's impossible for this mass transatlantic slave trade to be going on when we go back to the primaries. Let's see who he said he had came on the slave cargoes. Now, he tells us that you had an estimated 1,500 annually. The most were English, a few Scots, fewer Irish, okay? Fewer Irish. Never mentioned Africa, not one time. Now let's walk. Now this is the European migration that they're coming over from Europe and being sent as indentured servants over into the 13 colonies. Now we'll get to Charleston. Why Charleston is important? We're back here because we're going to set up this Gullah Geechee paradigm that they talk about today, which is an American Indian story that's going to be rolled over. Let's work. So 1670, they'll get Charlestown. It'll be named Charlestown after King Charles. Now, right here, this book regarding Charles is going to speak about King Charles himself was infamously a colorful character. His dark skin, full mouth, luxuriant hair made him a striking figure. Now, this is a statue of him. Anyone can pull it up and pull up the statue on this guy. There's a YT man standing there. I had it with me, but I just ain't want to show it on Rich Channel and get it flagged in that. But a guy standing right in front of the statue, and he's speaking about it. So look it up, King Charles II statue, and they'll show it to you. They also have what's called pubs there, 400-year-old pub called the Black Boy Inn. And where did it come from? It represented King Charles II, the Black Boy. He got this nickname from his mother, Henrietta Maria France, due to what? His dark hair and dark complexion. So we know that these people were melanated, but this is part of the story that was left out. So we're going to get down into South Carolina. Now, between 1607 and 1715, more Indians were exported into slavery through Charlestown than Africans were imported. Now, this is very important because what gets left out is we hear about the transatlantic slave trade, but we never hear about the American Indian slave trade, which happened way before the anything about an Africa or a settlement, because June the 9th, 1788 is called the Exploration of Africa. It's with the African Institution, which aim was to discover the interior parts of Africa. Okay, and since we're on South Carolina and then we didn't establish that the king is melanated, we're going to establish that the slave owners also were too. Black slave owners, free black slave master, South Carolina, 1790 to 1860. And the slave master who had the most slaves was William Ellison Jr., a melanated guy that looked like a lot of people and probably, bloodline related to a lot of these people. Now let's get to the business. 1670, Charleston was settled. All right. Now it was settled by who? You had the Coosa, you had the people called Westos. Westos would be the Cherokee. The Cherokee come from upstate New York. The Iroquois branch through the Beaver Wars. They went down into the Great Lakes, came into Virginia. Some people know them as the Rickahokins. When they got down to the Georgia line, it became the Westavo River. That's where the Westos stopped at. They were met with resistance down there, and they became the Westos. So this later we'll know them as the Cherokee. But let's walk. So what tribes you had down there? You had the Yuchi. You had the Westos, believed to have been part of the Yuchi, in which colony was rescued by a band of Shawnee who drove hostile tribes out the country. In 1684, the English drew Yamasee and some related tribes away from Spaniards in Florida. So now we're going to see these migrations out of South Carolina going down into Florida. So this is what we paint. This is the picture we paint. Before the end of the century, 1698, it is claimed Englishmen had penetrated through the country of the Creeks and Chickasaw to Mississippi, an Englishman named Daniel Coates projected. Now, that's 1698. That's going to bring us to the Queen Anne Wars. Why is this important? Again, in Queen Anne, to tell you who she is, you had the Stuarts. King James, they wrote the Bible, King James Bible. His son, King Charles I, King Charles II, who we spoke of Charleston, well, James Duke of York is who New York is named after. Well, after he lost the crown, he had two daughters, Mary and Anne. One married William of Orange, and that's where you get to school, William and Mary in Virginia. And the other is Anne. His second daughter was Queen Anne. This is the Queen Anne Wars we're speaking about. Now, this war, you're going to have the American Indian slave trade. Okay, well, various groups raided others for captives who were then exchanged with English traders for goods, including firearms. Queen Anne War was expanded to scope slave raids, but also introduced conventional operation into the regions. They wanted to get to where? St. Augustine, where is that? Florida, where we started. and also British Charlestown. Now, these are people coming from the upper 13 colonies. We're going to walk this bitch down. All right, so this is why I'm setting up the board. So right here, Queen Anne War began 1702. South Carolina, that governor, it was James Moore. Now, he mounted an expedition to St. Augustine, like I said. Now, we're going to come down here. You had the English and hundreds of native allies, including many Yamasee, who wreaked destruction beyond the fortresses and taken numerous captives. So the Yamasee were slave raiders too. Now, I don't get down on them because it's like when the rabbit got the gun. It ain't fun when the rabbit got the gun, because when the Franciscans came and some of those Indians out of Florida was helping them raid the South Carolina tribe. So once people called the Goose Creek men got here, well, they returned the favor. You know, they teamed up with the British and they started attacking these guys as captives. So these developments introduced the Creek people in Georgia and Alabama to cultivate stronger relationships with Carolina. This is very important. We're building this Gullah Geechee paradigm. The colony, okay, so they were this alliance underlay large-scale attacks on Spanish allied Floridian people from 1704 to 06. Now, like I said, the Yamasee is not a bloodline tribe. It is a confederation of people who are coming together. This is why they're coming together, to avoid the slave raiders, who were also Indian nations, not Europeans. So let's walk. So Yamasee and other natives allies destroyed dozens missions, devastating the Appalachians in particular. 2,000 to 4,000 were enslaved. We haven't seen nothing about an African yet, and that's not the Don talking or nothing, but I'm just saying this information should have been out a long time ago. So boom, we're in Charleston in 1706. And the earlier English effort at St. Augustine, which is Florida, this is also a failed mission. Carolina militiamen and Indian warriors defeated Franco-Spanish raiding parties, and English ships drove the French fleet off the harbor. Okay, so now we're going to come down here to Port Royal. You had the Yamasee tribe of Georgia move to the headquarters of Port Royal to be near their trading partners. Yamasee raids on Florida, instigated by Scottish traders, prompted the Spanish retaliation and destruction of Stewarttown, 1686. So we see different Indians who were allied with different European nations. Now, the Indians outnumber the European nations, by the way, because we'll get into that. Now, you had in the southeastern community, these confederacies, they were important. So later, reconfiguring themselves as confederacies, like we spoke about, incorporate new people in the process. Coweta, Casada were two of the most important Lower Creek towns in the 18th century. And these are from the Mississippian culture. Now, they also pairs a new economy relationship with the English of Carolina, invite English traders in their town in the 1680s, 1690s, Coweta. Now, that is how a lot of them going to come in. They also going to come in as U.S. expanded in 1812 and make that a prominent place. But they were more like the weaker branch of the true five tribes that came in that area, became known as Muskogee, Chickasaw, Creek, Choctaw. Now we'll go to the 1711. They'll take a 1711 Tuscarora War. Now the Tuscaroras will go upstate New York and join the Haudenosaunee, or what you call the Iroquois. They'll be the Six Nations to them. And when they win the war, it was 1,000 Indians and it was 33 or 50 Europeans. So you tell me who was running the show. Was Europeans running the show, or was Indians running? Nothing went down in America without American Indians. That's why the slave raiders wasn't YT men. That's why they wouldn't. They were Indians, raid other Indians, smaller tribes, and also rival tribes, and also people who had basically the resources under the ground in the areas that they were on. It was turf wars. So we'll go through the Tuscarora War, 1711. That'll bring us over here to the Yamasee War, 1715 to 1717. The Yamasee War was one of the largest and most dangerous Indian wars in colonial history. April 15, 1715. They call it Good Friday. What a day. Now, Port Royal, now the entire Creek Indian Confederation reaching present-day Alabama and Mississippi, Port Royal frontier was destroyed and abandoned, and the Indian Commissioner Thomas Norton during this outbreak. So here go to the Yamasee War. They're gonna pop out. Other Indians like the Chickasaw were making moves. The Erie had been forced out of western Pennsylvania by the Iroquois. They moved south. They became the West, though, like we were speaking about. Then you got the Yamasee and Georgia coast. You got the Erie coming out of the Great Lakes area. So you had the Erie. They traded for guns with the French and the British tribes. The Spanish had been more interested in missionaries than trading with natives. So this is this group that's moving down. So we're going to get from the Yamasee War again, because they said the Yamasee went extinct. I don't believe that. When we come here, early history, Creek Indians and their neighbors, we're going to come over here. He saw Yamasee slaves living amongst Seminole. But from other data, it's evident that free bands and hold or part of Yamasee still existed. Now, this is something very important that I want to get out there. So they spoke about the Yamasee. According to the same writers, their complexion is somewhat darker than the other Seminoles. They noted the leader Jumper said that some have been Yamasee descent and that they found refuge from the Creeks and Lords in the long war and Americans which followed. And this is what they're going to do. Listen, family, the tribe became fused with one of the larger bodies, the Miccosukee. Okay, very important. Whose language is supposed to be the nearest to their own. No, it is the Miccosukee language. What are you talking about? So the Yamasee end up going to Pensacola, Mobile, Alabama. Some went with their families in the Appalachians and remained with them and returned to East Florida, and some of them went to Cuba. Now, when we pulled up the Gullah Wars in the beginning, 1739 was there. Why was 1739 so important? In 1758 would be the end. 1739 is important because the rebellion happened in South Carolina called the Stono Rebellion. Right here we see the Gullah Geechee Queen Quit. Shout out to Miss Queen Quit. Now, the Stono Rebellion is said to be the largest slave insurrection in British North America. It began in September the 9th, 1739, with 20 Africans who raided Wallace Creek on the Stono River, taking guns and weapons. So they came back and made it an African story. This is wild to me. And so many people that I had so much respect for, and some of them as of lately have come out and spoke to us about their American Indian heritage and what their parents told them at home. But we could have been a lot farther. We're not going to stay on that, though. Let's walk through this. Now, what happened? Now, so the story goes that a slave named Cato, all right, Cato, the slave owner thought it was clever to bestow a classic name on him, said he belonged to the Cato clan, okay? Now they came back and said they said if he was a man, they called him Jeremy by the Cators, i.e. Jeremy Cato. So this Stono Rebellion is said to happen over a guy named Jeremy Cato. Now they said out of respect, we'll call him, or out of African American tradition, which we'll call him another name, his African name, which we cannot know. So when we look into this Afrocentric history that was given to us, a lot of it, once you go in, it has no base, it has no foundation, it has no depth to it. That's why it's all generalized. That's why we all been put into one basket. That's why we all have the same ancestors. That nothing is of your own. And so when we come here, they said they don't even know his name. If he had an African name, they don't know. He had been described by social historian in the Negro Digest as the first Negro leader to emerge with any clarity. Come on. So this is what we're going to do. So we're going to the Catawba Indians. Off top, we established there's no such thing as a Catawba Indian. But this is a confederation that took place that was in the area of what is Charleston today. So in 1670, that's when Charleston was founded. Charlestown was founded on Catawba soil, meaning on Indian soil, meaning there were people there. You had Coosa Indians, 1674, and they had trouble with these people. With who? The Stono. In 1775, the Coosa Indians and the people with the Stono Indians. In 1675, the Coosa Indians surrendered the English large tract of land on Ashley Barney. Now let's walk. Now we're going to come back to the same source that just spoke to us about this guy being African named Jeremy. And if he had a real African name, they don't know it. Well, he comes back and talks about this. In South Carolina, there was a slave revolt, but growing in the terminated unsettled bold, also influential ripple effects. Now, on September 1739, an advanced shaking condition with 2 years disease left, the colony historians called it the Stono Rebellion. But on the frontier, they knew it as the Gullah War. So we know this is coming from Afrocentrism, and this is a 21st. This is a 20 to a 21st century source. That's the only time you're gonna hear this type of language. So they're gonna call it Stono Rebellion. No, they're gonna call it the Gullah War, or more plainly, insurrection of Carolina Negroes. Well, let's get it straight, because we call it Stono Rebellion because it started on the plantation district and known as Stono. It's the Stono Rebellion because it started on a plantation known as Stono, which had taken its name from the river that ran it. The Stono River, which has taken its name from who? The Native American tribe, the Stono or Stonoe, who when Carolina was founded in 1663, was settled close to Charlestown. By one of the dark coincidences history delights, the Stonos themselves are remembered principally almost entirely. So they wiped these people's history out. So the people in Charleston speak about Gullah Geechee, and they never even heard of the Stonos, who homed this war, who called this place home, and they end up changing the revolt to an African story. But let's walk. So, like the rest of the coastal tribe, Carolinas encountered the Stono and quickly learned to resent white encroachment on their land, and serially abused Indian traders. As early as mid-1680s, colonial authorities had begun to relocate the Stono onto a succession of land. Now, like we spoke of earlier, in the low country, they had these tribes. And here go a tribe down here was recognized as the Stono, the Kiowa. The Etowah people were associated with the Stono, Ashley, and Cooper rivers. And right here, when we come to the map, right here in this circle, right here, you see Stono. Okay, no Gullah. Now, a lot of Moors, shout out to the Moors, shout out to the OG Taj Tariq Bey. I love Taj. They always spoke about the 1740 Negro Act, and it mentions the word Moor in it. So I guess they thought it had something to do with them. No disrespect, but we're going to get it straight. So we're going to go to the primaries. Attended with great inconvenience slave literacy in the 1740 South Carolina Negro Act. Now, the Stono War happened in 1739, which they start the Gullah Wars at. Now, dozens of slaves gathered near Stono River, less than 20 miles from Charlestown. After attacking a local store to secure firearms, they moved southward to St. Augustine, Florida. Now, watch this here. Now, there was a militia at Stono River following the insurrection. Now, the Stono Rebellion was quickly struck down. It remained the largest slave uprising in British colonies. In response, South Carolina General Assembly in 1740 amended slave codes that enacted what is called the 1740 Negro Act. Now, these documents are housed in South Carolina Department Archives History, contain the passage and the scholars' early colonial African American literature. This small important statute prohibits slaves from learning to read and write. Now, when we go to the primary source, now it declares that all Negroes, Indians, free Indians in amity with the government, meaning Indians that were working with the government that was allies with them, Negroes, Latos, Mestizos, who are free, accepted, slaves, the offspring to the following condition of the mother. That's how a lot of people became slaves. If their mother was slave, then the children would automatically be slaves unless the father freed them. In most cases, they use that as a way to, be polygamous and, basically like a pimp situation. Under provision held the color prima facie, the party bearing the color of a Negro, mulatto, mestizo as a slave, and the same face is not from the Indian color. So this story is told, and right here they let you know that on the early morning, South Carolina prepared for church, and dozen slaves came. They're gonna let you know it was the Indians. So the 1740 was based off of the Stono Indians Rebellion War. Now let's walk it down. When we get over here, you had Governor James Oglethorpe. James Oglethorpe was a defender of the Stewart family, those black kings that founded Charleston. Well, they need to get closer to this port down in Florida, so they're going to establish themselves in Georgia, a place called Darien County. At the time was the richest place. And you're going to get Savannah, and you're also going to get Spalding, Georgia. Spalding, Georgia is going to be a guy by the name of Spalding who's going to end up buying all the land up in St. Paleo Island. Okay, he's going to own all of the land in St. Paleo Island before it was over with. He was connected with a Indian trader out of Charleston. What's my boy name? It's going to come to me. And they also were associated with the Forbes company down in Florida. So through that family, they're going to end up making their way to Tennessee as well. And they're going to marry into these American Indian families, and they're going to start what is called land lotteries and ways to remove the Indians off the land. Now, we're going to speak about the Yamasee, a small tribe found on the side of what is now Savannah by Governor Oglethorpe, 1733, when they founded the colony. You had the Yamasee, shout out to the Yamasee. Now, when we come here, the uprising followed, known as the Yamasee War, participated more or less actively by the Appalachian, the Catawba, and their allies, the Appalachia Creeks, the Cherokee, Rapid Success colonists, first against the Yamasee and then the Catawba, and they advanced to the north, and they put an end to immediate danger of the Yamasee, Appalachia, and Appalachia. Now, when we come over here, they say that the Yamasee were extinct, but at the Bureau of American Ethnology in page 106, they say that it was written November 27, 1736, the Pueblo Timucuan probably contained remnants of Timucua's people and descendants of who? The Yamasee, proper of the old people Gullah. Appalachia do not appear to have settled in St. Augustine. Two individuals in the name of the tribe. Now that's gonna bring us to Georgia. We're gonna run through it. We setting it up. Georgia. We gotta go through Florida, Georgia, because the real Gullah gonna come out of there, and then the Ogeechee River, and then we got South Carolina and this Florida. We finna make it make sense. So boom, the Highlanders that landed in Florida. This James Ogletree, and he's there for the Stewart family. He's a Jacobite. So here's the Jacobites right here. Now we know the Jacobites were melanated because we go to what's called the Jacobite gleaning. When they lost the wars, they became prisoners right here in the States. This is a description of 150 rebels who was taken prison. Now it's gonna name their age. It's gonna give you their name. It's gonna give you their age, their occupation, their place of birth, their height, and it's going to tell you what color they are. As we see swarthy, or you see black, you see tall and slender, brown. Oh, hold up. As we come down here, dark complexion, well-made, black hair. Here go one with pale complexion. Here go one with fair, brown, dark complexion, well-made. So we know that these people are going to also look like us. And when we go to Virginia colonial soldiers, you also see when we look on the list, these Irishmen. These people that's these Irish, these people that's coming out of England, they're dark with brown hair. The Englishmen, they go a fair one, but Virginia planters dark. But you're seeing these European people who are dark skinned. Now, 1791, you get what's called the. So okay, I skipped this here. After that war, at Stono Rebellion, you get the 1754 to 1763 French and Indian War. Treaty of Paris would be signed. Proclamation line 1763 would be drawn by King George, because the tribes from upstate, such as the Iroquois, what became gonna become the Westos, they were raiding slave raiders. So King George, and they was taking land in 70. King George with the proclamation 1763. Well, a guy named Connor Sataga from the Onondaga tribe of the Haudenosaunee, he's going to help them create what's going to become the Continental Congress up in the upper 13 colonies. Well, these people are going to come down and basically, try to come conquer the other tribes. So that's why the proclamation line was drew. Now, since they're there under the King's Charter, they cannot cross the Appalachians. So this is what brought the Scottish Highlanders into it, because they can go cross, and they were arch enemies with the English, but it was business, and that's how they became Indian traders. Well, that's going to lead you down to the Pontiac Rebellion, shout out to Rod Hayes. Then that's going to take us into the Cherokee Anglo Wars, or what you call the Civil War, 1783 Treaty of Paris, that'll be ended. 1779, the Sullivan Expedition, that'll kill the Iroquois government up in the north, which the United States modeled their constitution after and their government after these people called the Iroquois, or the Haudenosaunee, Indians who look just like us. 1779 Southern Expedition will finish them. Now, some of those tribes actually created the United States out of that branch, and they went against the larger tribes, the Seneca, the Mohawks, so on. But we pushing now. 1791, George Washington went to 13 colonies. He wanted to expand to the southeast. And after 1783, that proclamation line that was drew, and they couldn't cross the Appalachians, well, it's null and void. First thing, executive order, null and void. We crossing it, and we finna run up in there. So the play was 1791, the civilization plan. This is where the 5 civilized tribes are gonna come from. Now we're dealing with southeast area. They need to get to Georgia, to hit Georgia, and so they can hit Florida. This is the plan, and also Alabama. And they have allegiance because in 1783, 1786, 1788, it was some sign called the Treaty of Hopewell, which brought in the Creek Indians, the Cherokee, and the Choctaw. This is what's going to give them access to trade on the Mississippi River off the G-Pass of the Choctaw. Now, so 1803, you get the Louisiana Purchase. 1807, you get the Federal Road through Georgia. You had what's called the Red Sticks and the White Sticks there. So this is going to become the Creek War. Really 1810, but they got it 1813, 1814. And it's known as the Red Stick War. And it's a civil war between the Creeks, because some people on one side, the traditionals, and then the mixed races. The traditionals did not want to sign the civilization plan. The mixed races was for it because they were in the masonry. All treaties were signed by Masons, and they had bloodline ties to them. I give you this one. The Cherokee, the principal chief of the Cherokee for 40 years is John Ross. His dad name is Daniel Ross. He was a Jacobite, like I just showed. He ended up trading on his father-in-law, John McDonald, who was a British agent, but he went down into Florida. Well, he knew a lot of them because the younger branch of the Cherokee, the Chickamauga, they broke off and went down into Georgia with the Creeks. That's why if you ever in Atlanta on Peachtree, it's called Standing Peachtree. The Creeks and the Cherokee fought right there. These youngsters too. But they opposed the ways of the elders in their nation. They became the Chickamauga. So now we're pushing down into the South after this Creek Civil War. And then you're going to have the Battle of Fort Mims, which we'll win that. We caught them off guard. They left the gate open. Then you have the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, and then Battle of Fort Jackson, 1715. After that battle, we'll leave Georgia going to Florida. That'll begin what is known as the Seminole Wars, 1816. Now, this is me, because I'm just talking. I'm not an armchair scholar. This is me in Florida at the Seminole reservation, 1 deep. I got like an hour and 45 minutes of footage. Now, let's go into it. Now, they wanted to get down inside this area. We almost done too, y'all. We finna run through there. So, in accordance with the settled colonial mentality Jackson era, because Andrew Jackson is the one who wanted to raid it. The Rothschilds didn't want to put the money up. They were more focused on the industrial industry that was going on in the upper colonies. And so but they saw the value in the agriculture as it would move from beaver pelts to deer skins to agriculture. The South was way more richer because, as we know, that's where the black belt, that's where the best soil in the world is at. And, we have abundance of it, of resources coming out of the ground. So they saw the value in this. So when the U.S. was created, their constitution, they get everything together, boom, the Cherokee is created. This 5 civilized tribe is created. And they're basically going to be a governmental body over these nations that are in these geographical areas that the United States is going to set out. Boom. So now let's walk through it. They said that now you had these other people sign treaties. They said the Seminole signed treaties. Well, at that time, there were people who were on the side of the Seminoles and saying that these treaties were fraudulent. Now, we're going to go here. This stemmed from a strategy. The first and foremost aim to eliminate them from the land. Deceit, cohesion, and already seen were persuasive. Now, the U.S. House of Representatives, Horvis Everett of Vermont, addressing the opening of the Seminole War, simply stating the obvious when he replied in the negative to his self-possession, his quarrel. An initial reason, quite telling, was the fact that our treaties, or as they say, white man's treaties, made in our language, translated by our interpreters, and by them Seminoles, imperfectly understood, imperfectly remembered. Another primary objection, according to Everett, opponent of the Jackson Indian removal, was unquestionable fact that what Euro-Americans and or our own historians, we tell the story because these circumstances insisted in all question, doubt, power. Now, what are they speaking about? Because he's going to come back and say it's influential and not quite dated historical history of the Second Seminole War. They're going to say Mahone documented evidence and among other sources that the private diaries of Major Ethan Allen Hitchcock, the Army leading expert on Indian policy, guess what he's going to say? Hitchcock was quite adamant in charging that the Jackson administration was dishonest in dealing with the Seminole Indians. So the Treaty of Payne Landing that people talk about the Seminole sign, Seminole never signed the treaty. We was going to bang it out. What are we doing? We're going to go through that. So he said this unusual arrangement, Commissioner James Gasson bypassed the nearby Indian agent. So what happened? This is the guy Hitchcock again. He was convinced that Gasson had resorted to bribery, to acquire the necessary signatures and the supposed consent of the Seminoles. This allegation stemmed from first-hand account by Army Captain Charles Thurston. This whole issue was fraudulent. And this is government calling it out, but they're going to bypass it because then they're going to bring them into the play on the money play. But anyway, in Washington, D.C., he never could have got the treaty through if he had not bribed the Negro interpreter. So when we hear people like Abraham and these famous Indians, these are traitors. Why? Because they used Abraham for $200 to sign the treaty. I didn't say it. This is what they're going to say. So check it out. Right here, a black interpreter named Abraham purposely misrepresented the stipulations in such manner to leave the chiefs under the impression that they were, and they have the ultimate decision on whether to move to the west. This was simple, unquestionable truth. Now, Hitchcock understood what? He also supported the similar version of the event and maintained that the treaty stipulations were falsely represented to them. All right? And the payment of $200 to Abraham. So they didn't get him $200 and he didn't came here and spoke for everybody. So let's walk. Right here, like I said, why am I qualified to speak on this conversation? Because right here, William Billy Osceola, Willie Paul is my 8th ancestor. This is my genealogy right here. This is me at his burial site. Now, when I went there, this is in South Carolina. Had to cross the bridge, everything, left out of Charleston. Went to go see kinfolk was down there. Beautiful fort right there, too. But this is what they say he passed away at. All right, now let's talk about it. Now we rocking. So 1816, we done went through the Second Seminole War, Treaty Payne, all of that shit there, right? Now we're gonna bounce over. This is a story that a lot of people don't hear about. Now, when America won the war in the Civil War, you had something called the Seminole Scouts. They contacted the people who defeated them, who defeated over 8 U.S. generals. That's why when Brother Rich read earlier, this is the most money America ever put in the war. They couldn't do nothing with us. And I'm going to show how we built the most powerful army in the world. And today, they're still the most powerful, and it's because of us. You're witnesses the Seminole Indian Scouts. What happened? Well, they left Florida, went to Oklahoma. 1829, Vicente Guerrero, first black president of Mexico, outlawed slavery. So if you could get to you get to Texas, then you could get to freedom. So a lot of Indians found their ways there. In history, they'll call them Maroons. And 20th century, 21st century, they call them Maroons and all of that shit. But they have real names and nations that they come from and bloodlines. So this is Seminole Indian Scouts in Texas. Seminole Indian Scouts, and it speaks about the U.S. Army, the Negro Scouts, this elite group. They're elite. I'm going to show you how elite they were. Recruited for people living in Mexico. And so the U.S. couldn't deal with what is called the Plains Indians. So they brought in the people that they couldn't defeat to fight them. So the Plains Indians will later be classified as Native Americans. We'll get to that. So right here, as we see, and they were Negro Scouts, Fort Clark in Texas, Bracketville, Texas. The Scouts were protected. The Scouts protected West Texas frontier against the Apache Comanche Indians, 1872 to 1914. 26 missions resulting in 12 battles. Now watch this here. You know why they called them elite earlier? Because no Seminole Negro Indian Scout was ever wounded or killed in combat. And 4 Scouts earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. Okay? We never lost a man, homie, when we went out there. As they said, we guarded the borders of Mexico because Mexico came and got us as well as the U.S. Mexico wanted us to guard the borders, and there we became family. As you see right here, El Nacimiento Tribu, Negros, Muskogos, and Seminoles. Okay? And on Juneteenth, when we celebrate, guess what? They celebrate. Why do this Mexican village celebrate Juneteenth? Because this is where the Seminoles came. And you see them right here. The Seminoles also pushed over to Bahamas and inhabited the area of Bahamas, Cuba as well. Very important to this is you had something called the Union Army used Southeast Indians called USCTs to win the war. Now, over 200,000 black soldiers served in the United States military. African Americans weren't allowed. Then they said, let the black man get upon his person the brass letter U.S. Let him get an eagle on his butt and the musket on his shoulder, bullets in his pocket. There is no power on earth that can deny that he has earned the right. And we know that's Frederick Douglass, right? So boom, Lincoln, which me and him have the same grandmother. So let's walk. This is the United States Army troop. Why is this important? Let me show you. So 1861, the Confederate Army, they signed a deal with the mixed race Indians of the 5 civilized tribes. For the Chickasaw, for the Creek, you had Daniel McIntosh, Willie McIntosh. You had others, and they end up forging the names. So what they did at this time, we're in Oklahoma, Indian Territory. So they came in with the Confederate Army and thought they was going to sneak attack us. So United States had put out something called the United States Colored Troops in Kansas. If you can make it to Kansas, then you can fight on side of the Union. We'll give you weapons and everything. So they tried to sneak attack the traditional Indians in the area. And right here, what they said, they fought like tigers. And this is the first Kansas Colored Infantry who saw a battle. And not only that, we will defeat the last Confederate general. Why is this important? Because when the United States Colored Troops got in there, we're fighting in Indian Territory. Albert Pike came down there and signed those treaties I spoke about the Treaty of Hopewell, 1783, 88, 86, 1791. The Cherokee had to do the Treaty of Hosting because they kept trade with Spain. Well, they are outside. They were in the U.S. jurisdiction. Albert Pike came and brought them outside the U.S. jurisdiction into the Confederate. Well, this is the last general. This is General Stan Wadey. He come out of what they call the treaty signing fraction. His brother was unalived, his cousin, Elazno Boudinot or Buck Wadey, and Big Ridge, Major Ridge, who came up with the plan. Can't nobody sell land. If you sell land, then we're gonna get you out of there. Well, they was gang style or mob style executed. Stan Wadey was the only one to survive. He was the last Confederate general to surrender, and this was at Dokesville, Oklahoma, near Fort Townsend. He was the last Confederate, and he surrendered to our people. And for that, we got what's called the 1866 Treaty, which even gave Creeks 160 acres. We got the same thing. This basically was a new constitution. The 14th Amendment would come around the same time, which they would offer citizenship to people who didn't want to be a part of the tribal nation and wanted to come into the jurisdiction of the United States. So 1866 Treaty. Now, the other day, Brother Rich, you asked about John Hoist. You know we can't go through the Seminole without talking about John Hoist. Oh, well, yeah. A lot of people know him as John Hoist. John Hoist was stiff. He was an old timer. His name was Warren Kabbalah, and he's gonna make his way to Texas. And he was a Seminole Scout. He headed the Seminole Scout. When they came to talk to him, that's who they came. So it was Warren Kabbalah. He went to a place called Coahuila, Texas. If you look in the background on this picture in the early 1900s, this is Coahuila, Texas. This is Mexico. I'm sorry. This is Mexico, Coahuila, Mexico, or Coahuila, Texas. And as you see, we got the trumpets. Look like a second line going on out there. Everybody, this guy got on a three-piece suit. This is what John Hoist came to. So you had the Buffalo Soldiers. Now John Hoist was a Seminole Scout. This is his grandson, John Jefferson, of Seminole Negro Chief John Hoist. Jefferson was a scout for who? The 10th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers. So after the United States Colored Troops was closed down, they brought forth the Buffalo Soldiers. We're almost done with this. This is the Buffalo Soldiers right here, this regiment. They spent over 25 years engaging in fighting Native Americans and mapping unexplored lands, opening up the West for settlement. We built the roads, we built the bridges, we built the highways, we fought the wars, and I had a clip saying that too. This would be the last conflict right here. Every Native American that's on reservations in the West fought against the Buffalo Soldiers, and after that war, the result they were put on these reservations. Now, what's important, when we spoke about the United States Colored Troops, the Third Seminole War, you speak about Billy Bowlegs. Billy Bowlegs, they have pictures going around him of him being this mongoloid type of looking guy. He don't look like us. But what's not known about Billy Bowleg, they tried to say Billy Bowleg ended up passing away in May 1859. Now we know the Seminole War was over 1858, but that's not true. Why we know it's not true? Because Billy Bowleg was one of the principal chiefs of the 5 civilized tribes who supported the Union in the Civil War. In May 1862, he commissioned captain of Company A, 1st Indian Regiment. He was prominent in the raids fighting in Kansas and in Indian Territory, taking a credible part in the actions. He died March 10, 1864. That was after the proclamation. So this USCT that we see right here fighting, that made it to Kansas when they tried to sneak us in Oklahoma, and we ended up defeating the last one. Well, Billy Bowleg fought in this. He fought for the Kansas infantry. These are these people. So he looked like us. That picture that they're showing is a lot. His name, matter of fact, is not even Billy Bowleg. But we'll go into that. I'm almost done. So as we see here, most Seminole sided with the Confederates, and then the refugees fled to Kansas. such as Billy Bowlegs. Now, after the Dawes Act, you had the Curtis Act, and that dissolved the Seminole government and divided its territory amongst 3,000 enrolled tribal members. So they're going to break up the Seminoles as we know it. Now, this is where it come into play. These people like this are being called Seminoles. We almost done. Now, where did this come from? The government, the military force of Canada and the United States have made plain Indian culture groups archetype in literature and arts for Native Americans everywhere. That's why if we said they'll laugh at us, because the institutions have made these people. Now, who are these? Again, we're speaking on the Buffalo Soldiers. We're going to go, the Buffalo Soldiers are going to fight in the Spanish-American War in the Philippines. Well, the Philippines was brought over to the Americas after the war. They were called Little Brown Brothers. This was a slang used by Filipinos during the period of colonial rule following the Treaty of Paris. Now, Mexicans and Hispanics call themselves brown brothers, or being called, they're not even understanding, what this means. This is Little Brown Brothers St. Louis Blues. This is the World Fair 1904. These are staged villages put up. So these people are here. Now we have Plan Indian, Plan Filipino, Native Americans, Filipino interaction at Carlisle in Indian school. So we're going to see these people. They put out, they put out, I think it was 5 million to civilize these people for 50 years. Now, right here, for many years, World Fairs held the United States featured recreated Native American villages where customers could pay to see inhabitants go through their daily lives. Okay, this Chicago World Fair. The Seminole Village, 1939-1940 fair was smaller. So, Brother Rich, when you ask, when we pull up the Seminole pictures, why we don't see us? Because they're going to show us the pictures that came from this World Fair in these villages that was created. Right here, this is a postcard, Chicago, Illinois, Seminole Indian Village, Chicago World Fair. Again, these are the pictures that are coming up. Now, where did this Seminole come from? A guy named Stanley Smith. We almost done. He came from Florida in 43. He was a missionary that arrived to them. Big Cypress Reservation people. Now, in 1934, something took place called the Reorganization Act, where they basically had to come in, and it went from a traditional bloodline chief to now basically like in the U.S. government where you had to do election. So again, another Seminole village. This right here is a recent picture. They put it in black and white, but this guy's alligator wrestling. Well, the oldest alligator wrestling is at St. Augustine Alligator Zoo Park, located a few miles from St. Augustine. We've been talking about today. And right here, when we come over here to the Library of Congress, we see this guy wrestling the alligator at St. Augustine Farm. So everything we did, they tried to get them to do. This is a much older picture. They made the other picture black and white of the other guy. Now, this was the New Deal. Like I said, the June 18, 1934, they did the Reorganization Act. So now your tribe, you have to be voted in. So the first principal chief, look, Billy Osceola, he was the first elected Seminole chief. So they started over. When they started over, this is the first elected. And he came through a missionary guy from Oklahoma, a YT man named Stanley Smith. Now, this is very important because he go the first elected principal chief for the Cherokee after the Reorganization Act. So this is a Cherokee dude who was elected. He first elected for the Seminole. He first elected for the Cherokee. The Gullah War, 1739-58. Now let's kill the Gullah talking. I'm gonna be quick. Right here, the first person to ever mention Gullah is a guy named John Bennett. This YT man. Now right here, he drew stories of Black culture tales drawn from Gullah culture. He considered to be the leading figure of the Charleston Renaissance. Now, when we really get into it, white slave importing patterns labeling enslaved Africans may account to the presence of the word Gullah in American vocabulary, isolating and defining the qualities as people associated with the label is complicated. Why is it complicated? Because during the last years of the 19th century, Southern writers Joel Chandler Harris, Charles Jones introduced what? Coastal Georgia black dialect and folklore to America. This is 19th century. Now, soldiers who fought in the Civil War was noted to have a strange dialect in South Carolina. Understandable. Now watch this here. George Phillip from Columbia University argued that the Gullah dialect was a form of broken English. Now, how many of y'all out there speak broken English? Hell, I'm from the country. I'm a country boy. Y'all probably, it's a lot of words y'all probably didn't understand I said tonight, or I said clear. Y'all probably thought wasn't King or Queen's English, but let's work. It's called broken English. They never attributed during the Civil War, they didn't attribute to being an African language. Let me show you when it happened. The view of black Africanness was most clear articulated in Victorian thought. Now watch this. Modernist thought in America challenged the ideology underpinning the Victorian thought of civilized and savage people. Now let's come down here. It said Paleo Islands as a authentic Gullah folk-derived form transformation of ideas, race, culture, which resulted into the adjustment of the way of social sciences. Now look, between the African progenitors during the 1920s and 30s. Now we just showed you during the Civil War, they said it was broken English. But during the 1920s and 30s, the Paleo Islands were visited by researchers who sought to establish the African origins of their cultural practice, as well include the larger network of low country blacks assumed to share similar connections to their African ancestors. The Paleo Island dialect investigated their folklore, documented their crafts were respected, and their spirituality, religion beliefs were interrogated. Okay, now for authentic Gullah folk on say Paleo, it traces researchers' increased interest, black folk life, the heightened exploration of black spaces. Now, these places, black communities like Harlem sites, where whites could go slumming and escape the constraints of civilized life. Now, watch this here. White modernists penetrated the barrier between black and white words in search of freedom and imagined beloved primitive had. Why do you say that? Because this guy, Franz Boas, who's going to be the anthropologist, the American anthropologist, are two white scholars who engaged in academic slumming during the interwar period. This is very important. Historian Darren Baldwin explains that the cultural relatives are derived in direct sense inspiration, profit as early samplers of what many white people perceive as unique, primitive of African and Southern folk cultures. Now, Parks and Boas' motivations and intellectual orientations were quite different. Both men dedicated their careers to doing what? Making sense that the people existed on the other side of the veil, separated white civilization from blacks. So he understood. Boas credited significant transforming the way that scholars understood Africa. This is coming from a YT man, not the black scholars, not our heroes, but you know what's gonna happen? And this inspired black and white academia alike to take a second look at both African things and African people. After this YT man said it, all of a sudden this story that we just went through, and every story that people look like us is now an African story, because this YT man said we need to take a second look, because the first look said it was broken English and there was no African ties. So now we're gonna come over here. Judith Peterkin, I got about 8 slides left. She was the author, South Carolina. She wrote what? On the Gullah people of the Low Country. She was one of the few white authors who wrote about African American experience. Did you know what's interesting about her? She shaped the 1920s and 30s characterizations of Gullah. Even though Southern writers and folklore collectors had investigated and written about blacks that lived in the coastal Georgia and South Carolina before Julia Peterkin, emphasized that these blacks were distinct from other black Americans, Okay, different cultures. But guess what she said? She consolidation of Gullah as a distinct identity in modern primitives. Now, unlike white models in the North, Julia Peterkin did not have to venture to black spaces. She never been to the Sea Islands. Y'all, the Gullah story is coming from YT women out of the North writing about experiences, about places they never been, getting pushed back from their peers who are in the same field. Now check it out. Peterkin, South Carolina native and white plantation owner lived amongst blacks who worked for her, the racial arrangement inherited South Plantation. She wrote Julia Peterkin's short story novel presenting Gullah life on a fictional book. This Gullah story is going to be fictional. It was not real. While the book was not real, Peterkin claimed the stories that she wrote were informed by actual events. Peterkin characterized the uniqueness of Gullah people according to her imagination. And she won the Pulitzer Prize for it. Now, watch this here. The black people who lived in the quarters of Blue Brook Plantation believe they are the best black people living in the whole net. And in the swamps, talked about the rice. They are no Guinea Negroes, thick lips, wide nose, this Dinkas. Now, watch this here. Peterkin, she's not going to get no support from YT scholars and a lot of other people, but you know who is going to back her? The NAACP. All right? Who else? Now, Peterkin Blue Brook nested itself deep in an imagination of all who encountered it. And they began to imagine authentic Gullah folk. The widespread conceptualization of Gullah people was literally rooted in fiction. The first widespread conceptualization of Gullah people was literally rooted in fiction. While Peterkin was busy crafting Gullah tales, were interpreted by the people who read them, modernist social scientists began to seriously take a question about African retentions and look for verifiable phenomenon through which they could prove that voodoo roots and conjure practices among Southern blacks originated in Africa. Now they want to take a second look off of something that was rooted in fiction. Now, the hunt for the Gullah people and the search for real equivalent would eventually lead researchers to Sapelio Island. Now, here you go on Carolina Plantation, Julia Peterkin, the Negroes that stand genuine success attempt yet made the souls of the people. Peterkin makes singular stroke that white people in this book from the first list of the stories of Negroes. Now it's gonna come down. The Carolina Plantation by its owner shooting season only came by during shooting season. Now, South Carolina was unmatched. Here go the Gullah stories of the late Ambrose Gonzalez in a different diary of women rights planners. Now, this story is going to take place from this lady. Now, we're going to get down here. Even on ABC, they're going to tell you that the Gullah and Geechee are often used together. The words are unknown. The Gullah comes from Angola, Africa, where many enslaved brought. Then they come back and tell you the U.S. think Gullah refers to Gullah people who lived around the Ogeechee in Savannah, Georgia. Easy work. Now we're gonna come here. We're finna close it out. This guy right here, Lorenzo Dow Turner, he's the father of the Gullah dialect. He's the guy that's gonna hear a word shout song. Okay, Smithsonian word shout song. He heard a song in the Sea Island and said, "You know what? You remind me of some. You sound just like somebody I know in Africa." Well, he worked under. We heard of Franz Boas, the guy who's gonna change the way that people looked at Africa. His student, Melville Hercules, who's going to be the father of African studies. Well, his student is going to be Zora Neale Hurston through the Harlem Renaissance, who's going to write the book about Cujo in Africatown, Alabama. Well, his other student was Lorenzo Dow Turner. Now, before Dow Turner could complete this, he ended up passing away. So since he passed away, this is the guy that's going to take over. Historian who we started off with, that told you if you want to know who Gullah is, Gullah Geechee, they kept the most African. Well, this is him receiving a Sierra Leone passport. Why is a YT man receiving passport to Sierra Leone. And this is at the embassy in Washington, D.C. Because he is the one, Joseph Apollo. He is the American notice for establishing the Gullah connection, the historical links between indigenous people of West Africa, Sierra Leone, and Gullah people of the Low Country region, South Carolina, and Georgia, United States. And we ain't got to go in too deep, but right here is Queen Quet, and you can find in the book what Mose was. She got a lot of her information on the Gullah Geechee from this same guy, Oars.
Man, wow. Whew. Man, that was pretty thorough, y'all. That was pretty thorough.
Hey, I had like 280 slides. I just made it short. We just went like 150.
Yeah, man. Wow. You know, I was just thinking, I'm like, damn, you know, the last person who made a debut on the channel like that, I think it was Dr. B Serious or either Yaki. But to make a debut, or maybe it was Brother Sharif. No, Brother Sharif was the last one to make a debut that impactful.
Sharif, shout out to Sharif.
Yeah, shout out to Sharif. Rod Hayes' debut, he was with Blue Pill, so he ain't get to really go in by himself because he was with Blue Pill, so he shared the time. But whoa, man, that's a hell of a debut on the channel, man. That's a hell of a debut.
Hey, but you know, when you call me earlier, you say, what'd you say? Hey, you ready for the big
leagues? I say, are you ready for the big leagues? I said, yeah, you ready, man? Okay.
Well, I told you though.
Yeah, you ready, man?
Well, I said, I'll work, easy work.
Yeah, man, you ready, man? First thing, I'm gonna get to some questions from the people in the chat. Shout out to everybody. We got about 2,000 people in the chat. All 2,000 of them have been glued to the screen.
Oh, okay.
We in an hour and a half in, and then we glued to the screen. I'm gonna tell you, family, I gotta listen to that again and again. So much information packed into that. I gotta listen to that again, and we definitely got to do some more presentations like that with this brother right here. But the first thing that you keep saying white tea instead of white. Why do you keep saying white tea?
Oh man, I had went over to TikTok and over there, you know, you can't say certain words or they'll ban you. So yeah, I just picked that up in it, and so we'll say YT instead of white, so they won't ban you. And so it just became a habit. You know, I know censorship is real. You know, so yeah.
Okay.
Cut on.
Okay, just curious. Family, we're gonna do a Q&A for about, I would say about 20 minutes. So y'all can put some, they enjoying it in the chat. Shout out to everybody in the chat. How y'all like this?
Appreciate
you got a cash app? They said on the post, you got a cash app, brother? They want
nah, I ain't got it.
Brother don't have a cash app. But all right, yeah, post some questions in the chat while they're getting that together. So let me ask you a question, brother. Who was the first group? Because so you're saying when we're talking about these slaves or indentured service coming from Europe, you saying these were black people that came from Europe?
Oh yeah, and that's why I wanted to show the proof as well. You know, so yeah.
Right. So where did the Fezzes come from? Who was the first group rocking the Fez? I've heard so many stories, conflicting stories about the Fez. We see all the secret societies wearing now. They wear it, the white secret society. They throw the shit on the Shriners and all that. But where did that come from, the Fez, my brother?
I'm gonna be honest. I ain't gonna go too far on it. I don't know, but this is what I would say. You know, for as the Moors, that a lot of them, you know, the Moors come from. They were defenders of Islam. So when Prophet Muhammad passed, remember Prophet Muhammad had a younger, you know, wife. Well, her dad felt as though he should have the throne or the power after Prophet Muhammad passed. The Prophet Muhammad family felt as though it should went through them. So the defenders of Islam. So if you look at the rise of Islam and put it on the side of the Moors, you're gonna find. You put it on the side. Yeah, the rise of Islam coincides with the rise of the Moors. So that's why I always ask them, are you a what surnames, because they use the El Bay Day and all that. I'm not taking nothing from them. But when we go back, people like Abu Bakr, like it's real names, real surnames, real families who are tied to this, and it is tied to Islam. It's tied to the rise of Islam. Right. And the last one was the Ottoman Empire, and they were defeated by King Taurus, who also was a melanated man who we see on the Incas list.
Indeed. Yeah. So when did having these conversations, and I constantly see people in the chat saying, black is a crayon color, we're not black, or we're not this, or whatever. You always say that. When did people who we call white people become white, and the people we call black people start to use the name black? When did this happen?
Well, I go with what Ty's always talk about, far as that concept of race when it came in.
Right.
Far as here, when you're going through the colonies, white and black not meaning skin color. It's a social status. It's you have to be a landowner. You have to be able to vote. You have to be a merchant, a purporter to one of these colonies. So it was a lot of rank back then. So yeah, white today doesn't mean the same thing. So we got to be careful. Even like I read a slide that said it was 6,000 white slaves, but they wasn't speaking about really YT people. T people started coming over after the Homestead Act, 1861, and then a lot through Ellis Island, and they went up to 1924, World War I, and that was the Immigration Act, 1924, when it started. Right. So the same way we see the mass migrations coming over now, that's how YT people came over in the 20th century. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on the reparation movement that's happening?
Shit, what I told them, if something happened to you, you're gonna have to prove it. You can't come in here talking about just because I'm black and I'm a slave narrative. You're gonna have to identify the slave in your family. You're gonna have to identify the person that did this to you. If you're going in the court of law, it's a legal matter, so you're gonna have to have evidence. And if you don't know your family story, then you better not walk in there because they're gonna make a monkey out of you. So that was my way of getting them into their genealogy, and making them go look for their family. Where are you in the story? We want to get away from his story and become my stories. And so I always say the age of master teachers is over with, because we have to become my story. And they taught us world history, and we want to know our history. We need to find ourselves in the story, and that way we can get solutions if something did occur to us, like bondage, slavery, and we need retribution from that. But you have to know your story in order to, So real quick, AB 3121, when California did it, the reparations, and it went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was either race, you're gonna give it to them if you're black, then you was an African slave, or it was gonna be lineage. You would have to prove it. But that concept they got that from me. So shout out to the young lady. She was the president over the thing. She ran it, Shout out to good sister out of Canada. But that concept came from me, little old me, and don't nobody know it because I don't have that many followers, and I was only here for 2 years. But I got on their road, and today when he got and I got to give it to them. They went and got that story from their family.
Well, why do I keep seeing people in the chat saying they're burning South Carolina land? What's going on in South Carolina right now?
Oh yeah, they had them fires down there. Same like California. So yeah, it's in the Carolinas now. See, somebody asked me, I have a PayPal. I have a PayPal. I mean, I ain't used it in a while.
I don't want them to send it. You got the right PayPal address? Because I don't.
Yeah. Which is my Dubai address on it anyway. But it's right though.
Okay.
I'm gonna put it in the bag chat.
Put it in the chat. Yeah, if y'all want to support the brother, somebody had asked if the brother had a cash app. If you want to support the brother, somebody said, hit up. Somebody said 5,000 acres got burned up. Yeah, I haven't heard about it. So we're hearing about it.
Yeah, I put it in the private chat.
You put it in the private chat. All right, let me get the brothers. If you want to support the brother, let me put this PayPal.
Yeah, that's a lot of land. They tried to buy a lot of it, and a lot of people ain't selling it. That's the same thing like in Houston. the railroad came through there. They wanted to buy up a lot of the historical area. They've been there since 1865. I'm from Fifth Ward, Houston, Texas. And they've been there since 1865. When the people didn't want to sell, they just flooded it.
Right.
The property tax. Yeah.
I just posted it. Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me make sure I take care of the brother real quick. PayPal. Give me 1 second, fam. All right. Not that. All right. So yeah, for those who are inquiring about supporting the brother, you can hit up this PayPal, legendary Topcatz 95660. You can hit that brother up on PayPal. Brother doesn't have a cash app, so if you want to support him, hit that brother up right there. All right. Somebody said South Carolina rich in lithium. You was talking about the soil. What you know anything about the lithium? You was talking about the soil. You heard about that? Because I heard when the what was the hurricane or something hit South Carolina early in last year, they was talking about the lithium out there. You ever heard anything about that in Carolina?
I know Charleston used to have an ancient volcano there. So, it's actually still there too. They got it blocked off in the military. But I know it was a guy named Lindo. They were Huguenots. They came there, so I can show you in Charleston. But they came there to get the indigo and those type of resources from the indigo, and they got very wealthy out there. Indigo trade out of South Carolina. But now I'm not familiar with the lithium.
Indeed. What? Let me ask you, how did with all this talk, seeing all these, because you showed a picture of King Charles being black and so many people that were black that we never knew, that we've been lied to all this time. How did if you're born in this world in the 1980s, in the 1990s, in the 1970s, or whatever, in the 1900s, you just see white people being in power. Everywhere you turn around, you just see white people in power, and you think you develop an inferiority complex. So hearing you say what you say, it seems so far-fetched for a lot of us. So the question I would say was, when did the power switch happen? How did they get all of this, fill all these positions? Everywhere you turn around is white people. If all of this shit was so black and melanated, the slave owners melanated, what happened with this? That there's sundown towns, they running niggas out of town at a certain time. How did this happen so fast, brother? So fast.
So we'll start here. The founding fathers were melanated, going down from George Washington. He have a son named George Washington Curtis, who ended up getting the land after he passed. He ended up marrying, his daughter married Robert E. Lee, the Confederate general, who we find out through his West Point records that he was a melanated man. He also had Wes Washington is his son, and his family was on the Oprah show, I think it was. Thomas Jefferson, his mom and dad was Indian. His family that looked like us was on the Oprah show, and they going through their genealogy records showing that they are us. Now, what happened was, even Abraham Lincoln and his vice president Hannibal Hamilton looked like us. Now, what happened? They had something called, after 1877, it was a Compromise Act. Now, this is going to end the support for this is going to end the support in the South. They're going to pull out. Now, what happened was, these melanated families, a lot of them going to come from the North. They're going to be Quakers, and they're going to be missionaries. What they're going to do is one of the coldest tricks in the game. They're going to breathe into these YT people. When they bred into them, this is a way to cover up the crimes that they committed in the past, the land that they stole, and they end up putting the YT people in position. So I'll give you an example. A guy ran the National Archives. Come to me. What's his name? He ran the National Archives. He trained this YT man. They demoted him. And he went back and wrote a book about all those black families that married into white families. I give you another story. And shout out to Uncle Rod Hayes. I see him in the building. Rod Hayes said they kicked us out. They used the YT people to kick us out the institutions. That was some of the coldest game ever. Now, the richest person in America, 1901, was a black man named Colonel John McKee. Mm-hmm. Colonel John McKee's grandson created the boule. Now, his son would live his life as a white man. Now, the family had so much wealth that they came to him on his deathbed and they asked him, "Are you a Negro?" Because he had married a white wife, had children, Wall Street friends, political friends. And in order for him to get the family inheritance, they wanted to ask, "Are you Negro?" Because they thought he was a white man. Mm. And his white wife and that side end up taking all of that money, all of that land. And the way that it happened was they bred into these white people. That's why they have our surnames. That's why, they bred into them. And that was one of the ways how they hid the wealth. J.A. Rogers, Sex and Race. When we go to that book, he speak about that, about Kenny MacDuff and about them procreating with YT people to hide the wealth and hide the wrongdoings to people that look like us. And that was a way to take the competition. So you said something else as well. So in the 20th century, never before, this was the reinvention of the Klan. Before, the first Klan was people that look like us. The second Klan was these people that's coming over from Ellis Island. They're bringing them in. Now they're going to put them on the front line. Now what's going to happen is this is the first time that they're going to put them together. You had labor wars, East St. Louis riots. You had what they call the Red Summer, where these towns were being burned down because they're saying a YT woman was great. It's Tulsa, Oklahoma, 21. Houston, Texas, Beaumont, Texas, Waco, Texas, Wilmington, North Carolina, 1898, through the Republican Party was taking care of poor YT people, and the Democrats created a fusion party to bring them in. The Democrats also brought over the foreigners, the YT people, so they can have what they call controlled migration to move them in areas or battle states for them to compete. Because it was impossible for them to compete because we created the Republican Party. And so, to answer that question, how did YT people get put in position where people that look like us still run the show? As we see now in these politics today, the people that's speaking for the Democrats the whole time through the election leading up to now look like us. Mm-hmm. So where are the powerful YT Democrats? It is people that look like us, have been the hand. What did Gregory say? The Wizard of Oz. They the ones in the background, and they put these YT people out here. The bloodlines come from us, and again, we some people bred into them to hide their crime. One more example: Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, on his dad's side, they came in 1832 from Dublin, Ireland. They're from Ireland. Yeah. So that was his connection in 1960 to JFK. He was their name was Branham. Mm-hmm. They were slave owners. They changed their name to King. These type of games that they play.
Say that last part again.
His name was Branham.
That was his last name.
Branham. And they changed their name to King. Nobody in their family name was King. They changed it because they were ex-slave owners.
Martin Luther King, man, we know as Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King
changed his name to King.
He didn't change it. His grandparents.
Yeah.
We go back to 00. He was, a lot of people don't know, Martin Luther King's granddad was the president of the NAACP. NAACP was created by a YT man named Joel Springham, who paid for the Pan-African Congress. And that came from Bruce, the guy that out of New York. They came from Bruce. They didn't like Garvey now. And they didn't like W. Du Bois, and yeah, he's told that Joel Springer paid for the 1919 Pan African Congress, and that's why it failed. And him and Barkley, that's why they didn't let Potbelly, what's his name? They didn't let Marcus Garvey in Liberia.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was people that look like us bred into these white people, YT people, and like Uncle Rod say, they use the YT people to kick us out the institutions. Period.
What do you think about Garvey and his Back to Africa movement? What's your thoughts on that?
Okay. Well, Garvey, it wasn't his idea. So in 1777, you had something called the Sierra Leone Company.
Right.
They're gonna fail. And then you had the African institution gonna pick up where they left off. They used a guy named Paul Cuffey. Paul Cuffey was American Indian mixed with European.
Mm-hmm.
His son, Paul Cuffey Jr., was a Pequot Indian. Him and his wife said they wasn't going. I can show you the information right now. Mm-hmm. Secondly, a guy named Thornton. These Thornton them came out of France, Canada. Mm-hmm. France is gonna be really Canada. They come out of there and they in Martha's Vineyard. So he was a shipbuilder and he taught people how to build ships. Everyone did have the ability to ship build. So he navigated back and forth to Africa and he wasn't paying them. We had a letter to him writing back trying to get paid. He got in touch with his friends, Richard Allen, Absalom Jones, and he asked them to, they had a church, Mother Bethel, the largest, black congregation. And he asked them who want to go to Africa. And they said you can hear a rat piss on cotton because ain't nobody answered. So the American Society was created in the early 1800s. And then since that didn't work, they ended up bringing in the African Colonization Society. And that didn't work. So by the time it got down to Garvey was actually successful, especially in Indian country. A lot of people from Arkansas, you had Mississippi companies, you had different places, but Garvey started being very effective, especially in New York. But Garvey had handlers. Garvey had two handlers. One of them name was Ernest Seville Cox. He wrote a book called White America, and it's about repatriation. And he wanted to repatriate people to Africa. He felt like Negroes and YT people couldn't share America together. And Garvey led out this plan. They also are the people who put up the money for his boat. So Garvey was used as a tool. As we see, he had a success in Jamaica that he had when he came over to New York.
Yeah.
And through that era, though, it's very important to look at it, Brother Rich, that Harlem Renaissance era, because everyone that came in was from the island. I'm not no FBA. I don't bang on the island. I'm America, everything, because they on the North American continent. But the West Indies came. St. Kitts, the Commandment Keepers, Matthew, Josiah Ford, they're coming from the islands. You had Jamaica.
This is during the Renaissance, the Harlem Renaissance.
Yeah, the Harlem Renaissance. All of these guys are going to be from the West Indies, St. Kitts, the island. They had 1899. You had the more Zionist Jews. Well, most of them came out of Iberian Peninsula, Egypt, West Indies, places like this. And they come in here giving us identities and ideologies. And you had Cyrus, who came to African Brotherhood, which was a Pan-African organization that actually was involved. They came 60 days before Black Wall Street burned down and W. Du Bois showed up on the scene. Who's a part of them? And so these type of things, as the guy at John Hope says, if you want to follow stolen land, follow the lynching trail, because people didn't get lynched for their color; they got lynched for their land and the resources that was under them. So from 1962 all the way up until 1980, it was millions of acres stolen from people here in the South. So that was the true story of the 80s. And they countered it with HR 40 saying that we were African, came over on slaves, when it was black farmers out there protesting that, hey, fam, my land was stolen. And there was a lot of elderly people. That's why they waited 38 years before they came back. And now today, they reintroducing HR 40 today, talking about they're still going to study. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that. But real quick, because John Henry Clark in 1969 in New York Times, he wrote Back to Africa in Spirit. So Back to African Spirit, John Henry Clark said he learned from Pan-Africanists before him, such as Garvey and the others who wanted to physically take the people from America to Africa. Now Clark was smart. What he did was he said he's gonna take the mind to Africa and keep the body here. So he's gonna take you to Africa in mind and in spirit. And that's how they got us.
Right. One thing I keep seeing people looking in the chat asking about, somebody said, can you explain more about the Siberians replacing us American Indians?
Yeah, well, actually, they never replaced us because they wasn't 1866, which is the topic that Trump is, this mass deportation with. He's using 1866 14th Amendment because it's only dealing with us. And the true instrument, they're speaking about Indian slave children. There's no name for Indian, or these people are coming from the West. They're called plain Indians. In 1922, you had what's called the Indian Citizenship Act. And then in 1924, they'll pass you through. But then in 1934, they came with something called the Indian Reorganization Act, which they told them if you're going to receive benefits or something, you're going to have to reorganize it. Basically, like I said, it's no longer traditional to go through the bloodline, but now it's going to be elected, so it can be rigged. So that's how all the YT people get in. Then they came with the Termination Act. After the Termination Act, they said, we're not paying nobody no more. And then they came with the relocation. And that's when we had the Great Migration with us. You had something called white flight. And in the 70s, you had, in the 60s, I'm sorry, you had the New Deal with Roosevelt come, and they signed the New Deal with them. And basically that time is up now. Just like they defunded African studies, they defunded African American studies because the colonization in the mind is over with. They closed down the boarding schools for the Native Americans, and ISIS is raiding their reservations today. So that is the number one thing to show you that they ain't from this country. ISIS in Navajo in different other, reservations. And so they're not coming to the projects to come. They know we hit. Right. They ain't coming to the projects. We can't go nowhere. They can't send us nowhere.
Right.
But they can go on these reservations and remove these people,
Let me ask you, do you think that we always hear the statistics that we are 13% of the population. Do you think that's a lie as well? What's your thoughts on these stats that we're 13, 14?
I'm going to show you something, Brother Rich, because, again, we're going to go back to this election that just happened. Mm-hmm. They say it's 400 million YT people here, right? Mm-hmm. And it's only like 40, 50 million of us. But the black vote is the vote that puts you in the White House. Trump just had a Black History Month at the White House. Trump stood there in front of all them people and he said, I'm standing here because of the black vote. Mm-hmm. If it was 400 million YT people in this country, it wouldn't matter if we got out, if every 40 million people got off the couch and went and voted, it wouldn't matter out of 400,000. So that right there lets you know that the number is wrong. Mm-hmm. And the way that they are spending all this money and time and they're directly targeting our community for the vote lets us know who really is the majority here. Because if it was 400 million white people to 40 million, we wouldn't even been included. They wouldn't care if we got off the couch and came outside that day. Our vote wouldn't matter for real. But as this presidency showed us, we make the world turn around. We are the deciding factor, as it always been.
What percentage would you say we are? What you think roughly about what?
We the majority, and that's why the Democrats wanted to bring in a lot of these. I mean, from the Afghanistans to South Americans. This is the reason why they want to bring in the migrants. Yeah. And we built America. We go back to every war, like Trump just stated. Y'all fought in the early militias. Y'all fought in the Civil War. I mean, the Revolutionary War. Every war that we had here, nobody else fought. We fought from World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm. Every war is us. Nobody else can say that. When I meet YT people, I always ask them, what year did your family get to this country? If they're honest, they'll tell you about 1918, 1910, 1912. They don't know their history, and they're mad because when they go back to Ellis Island, the people that was writing the names down gave them Americanized names. No different than they do African people with other immigrants that come here. But they cut them off from their bloodline. So it's impossible for them to trace themselves back to Europe. So no one here has more records on them and their family than we do.
Right.
Yeah, no one.
Damn. What you mentioned earlier, and this is a name that came up when I was interviewing Rod Hayes, John Horse, and you said that wasn't his real name. So I'm just curious, where did the John Horse thing come about? Because if we're researching, you're not even researching the right name.
Afrocentrism.
His
name was Juan Cabala.
What is it? That wasn't Afrocentric enough for them?
Juan and John, they got that right.
Damn.
But he spoke multiple languages. Spanish was one of his languages. That's why he did so good with the Mexicans. But see, we got to understand the Mexicans were us. The Hispanics or mestizos are the people the mixed people. Those, yeah. So when you look at the Mexican War, you see us fighting there. That's why Vicente Guerrero is the president of Mexico that said, ain't no slavery in Texas, or we banging it out. That's why John Horse and the Seminoles all went down there. That's why they celebrate. I showed that with Mexico, they celebrate with us, on Juneteenth. You feel me? Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
But his name was Juan Cabala. I also showed his grandson, who was Jefferson. So that bloodline gonna go through the Jeffersons as well. Yeah.
Let me get to a couple of super chat questions. Somebody wants to know, did some of the Gullah Geechee move north?
Well, that wouldn't have been a good idea. most Gullah Geechee went south. They went into Florida, they went into Georgia, they went to Cuba, they went to the Bahamas, they went to Alabama. Some of them lived some of them did go up into the Smoky Mountains, but the East Cherokee, they allied with the U.S. or the newly formed U.S. and they they were apprehended. But I mean it's impossible, yeah, because a lot of people did go to Ohio. We can't forget that. It was called a Pan-Indian movement. So shout out to the Pontiac Rebellion, because you had the Battle of Tall Timbers that took place up in the Great Lakes right after that. So you had mercenaries moving, and if you got family in Ohio, a lot of them did have family down in Mississippi areas and Alabama areas and things like that. Yeah. But most people were trying to get down south to Florida, Georgia, and after that, they were trying to cross the Mississippi and get over to Texas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Somebody wants to know, let me see, where is this question at? Weren't the Jacobites Haitian, if I'm not mistaken?
Jacobites were Scottish. So 1603, King James united the crowns. England, Ireland, and Scotland, which is going to be in the 13th colony. That's bloodlines of the Guard 6 I got coming. But the Jacobites would become defenders of the Stuarts. Now that would be King Charles II. So after King Charles II, he gonna be restored to the throne in 1660. That's how New York, they're gonna get New York from the Dutch. But his little brother, James Duke of York, gonna come in. Once he got ran off, they brought his daughters in. But the defenders of the Stuarts to bring them back, because in 1745, the kinfolk came through, Bunny Stewart, and they marched into Scotland and got their ass whooped. But no, they weren't Haitians. They were Scotland. Now, it would be French. So we'll have to understand this too. So you have Catholicism and then you have Protestant. That's what the fight was about. King Charles was able to go to France and hide out because his mama, Henrietta Maria, was part of the Medici family who were Protestants.
Right.
So his own cousin came down and took his throne, which is William of Orange.
Okay.
Who were Protestants. They were Catholics. They were up in Massachusetts, man. They were up there in Massachusetts, you know, where the Catholics at, and then Scotland was right there in Canada. You know, that's how he was able to move out. But I don't want to go too far and give up too much. That's gonna be in Bloodlines of the God 6. But yeah, that's how we got to look at it, through Protestant and Catholicism at that time. That's what they was banging, religion.
In the chat, they say you sound like Master P, man. You a no limit soldier.
Nah, I'm Texas Cowboy, East Texas Indian. But with the Jacobites, you know, if there was something about the craft, you know, if you're going with the Scottish Rite Freemasonry and the connection between Haiti, you know, I say this here: Haiti was a part of the French Empire. So you had Haiti, you had part of Lower Louisiana, you had Chicago, you had Congo in Africa, you had Canada, you know, and after 1763, the French and Indian War, they lost they trade ports to the British, and that's how it left from France and turned over to British Quebec in Canada, things like that.
Right. Okay, speaking of Haiti, where's this question at? Damn, I lost the question. Okay, somebody said, can you talk about the Gullah Wars kicking off the Haitian Revolutionary War? Any truth to that?
Nah.
Okay.
Nah, the Gullah War didn't kick out the Haitian Revolutionary War.
Okay, all right. Next question: are the American Aborigines descendants of Olmec?
Man, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Olmec lived a long time ago. I would be very, very impressed if y'all can prove bloodline. If you could trace your bloodline, I mean your bloodline back to Olmec, I would be very impressed.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: somebody who, you know, studies what you study, what do you think about, you know, a lot of Black Americans studying Kemet, saying that we came over from Kemet, we were the Egyptians that's on the walls over there? What's your thoughts on that?
See, you gonna have to bring me back on for that one.
Oh,
I wrote a book called America: Bloodlines of the Gods and Civilization. I have a 5-part series breaking all of that down. Now I get a short answer.
Yeah.
So last weekend I just left the Grand Canyon because I know you heard the stories of the Grand Canyon and Egypt and so I really went out there. So that's what I be doing. I be going a lot of places. You know what I'm saying? So I went to go see. That's the nigga was saying. I don't see the proof. You know, I done plenty of trips down to the Yucatan. We even did 2 group trips. So we did 15 group trips in 2 years, Brother Rich. One day y'all was in Stone Mountain and we was in Alabama. And I said, damn, I would have knew, we would have just pulled up to Stone Mountain with y'all. Y'all was out there y'all that day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like 40 of us too. It would have been live. It rained on y'all that day, but I caught it afterwards. But far as the Egypt situation, the story of America, the actual story that happened here, is going to be taken around the world, and that's how it's going to become a universal story. The origins of it is from America, and I think we could say that for the next one. If I'm able to come back on, I think that'll be a good topic.
Nah, that'll be fire. That'll be fire. Yo, we need.
Ain't nobody they're not gonna tell it how I tell it, because and that's not to knock their scholarship or nothing, but I've been so many places and I've been to these places to find these answers. I'm not Googling nothing on there. I'm gonna show you firsthand sources. I'm gonna take you to the places where they said it happened at, and I'm gonna show me standing there and we'll go through that information if I'm allowed to come back.
Yeah, man, I'm getting Texas from people. These Carolinas and the fires. I guess this is some real serious stuff going on, man. Yeah, family. I'm just now getting told about it. Wow.
Say the the Carolina.
Carolinas. Yeah, these fires in the Carolinas. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot going on in the world right now.
Yeah, okay. Okay, let's keep this thing going. Let's do about we passed the 2 hour mark. Let's do about 3 more questions, then we're gonna get out of here. All right. Somebody said please break down Black George Washington.
I just did. What was it? I told you. Go check out his son, George Washington Cuttis, Cuttis. That's he gonna pay his way in college. When he died in his will, he gonna leave the house to him. That land will go to his granddaughter, who's gonna marry the Confederate General Robert E. Lee. After they pass, you know what? Let me show my screen. I had some up real quick.
All right.
I'm up.
Yeah, you up. Yep.
Okay. So, map of the slave trade or whatever. Let me come over a little bit more. I want to show y'all what I'm talking about. So this right here, this is the freedmen, what they call freedmen villages. So before then, they were called contraband. They're calling these names because they have. So when these places come into statehood, they don't allow sovereignty from anybody else because it'll be a conflict of interest. If I have laws you not abide by them, then so they wouldn't give them a name, a status inside the U.S. jurisdiction. So they call them contraband and contraband camps until they was welcomed into the United States colored troops. After that, they call them freedmen. These are freedmen villages. Well, that land is gonna go. The land that George Washington granddaughter that married Robert E. Lee, George Washington was having relations with Robert E. Lee grandma. You feel me? So it's a bloodline thing. So we'll come down here to where they say the slavery happened. This is the slave trade coming over to Africa. 1789, we see the slave states in red. Now we come up, slave territory, unrecognized territory, Indian territory. So this is where all of this red is said to be where all of the slavery is happening. Well, when we go here to the map, this is the same place. Here go the Tuscaroras. We spoke about them earlier. Spoke about the Catawba. We spoke about the Cherokee. Spoke about the Iroquois. So right here, this the Appalachians. We spoke about them. The Yamasee, St. Augustine. Everything we was talking about today. This is them going through the Indian slave trade. So this was South Carolina Creek raid, 1702, 1706. And you'll see them being shipped out of Charleston. Also, when we move over, you got Louisiana, Alabama, you got Mississippi, with the Natchez, the Choctaws, the Upper Creeks. As you see them right here, the Chickasaw slave raiders, they're taking them to Charleston, sending them to the West Indies. The Appalachians, some of them popping out to Alabama, Louisiana, going to the marshlands. They'll later call them Maroons in Afrocentric history. All right, but they had names. But yeah, right here, these maps. So if we open it up, you'll see this whole area right here is Indian slavery. But when we look on the map, 1860, they'll tell us all of this slave area is African slavery. Mm-hmm. But when we look right here, as we see conflicts triggers, refugees, slaves, captives. The captives are in blue, the slaves are in red, and the refugees are in green. These are people who are getting out of Dodge. And you see them going from New Orleans to St. Domingue. Now, when we come here, what they call them contraband camps. So we're going to look at this map of those contraband camps where those people were at, who they didn't give a classification. They called freedmen. We're going to see them. Here go to Ireland, St. Augustine, Jacksonville, New Bern, Beaufort, all of this here, all the way up. Well, when we look right here, what's taking place there? The Indian slave trade is taking place right in the place where they call these freedmen settlements. So
Mm.
bars.
Yeah. All right, let's get to this next question. Let's keep this flow going. There's a good flow happening in here tonight. Let's keep this flow going. Somebody said, "What is the Confederate flag true meaning? What do the 13 stars in the Confederate flag represent?"
I'll say this here. Some of the people that flew the flag were the Confederate was ours. When you go back and look in the I had 5 fifth grade grandfathers that fought in the Civil War, and they all fought on the side of the Confederate. They later changed to the United States Colored Troops, but Confederate, once they made their stance against this U.S. expansion, the 13 colonies expanding, they put up their own. So they had Jefferson. Jefferson, we have records on him also being a melanated person looking like us when he was in the newspaper out of Canada. Jefferson, when he was a youngster, he about like 17, 18. And they describe him as dark skin. They talk about his grandma, who also looked like us. These are things that's out there, but the Confederates were us. And that's one of the coldest games. That's like the Nazi symbol. They take that away from you. And the Confederate flag is yours. Charleston White, he always joke around and wear his Confederate flag. And then when people say stuff about him, he turn around and name his great grandfather who fought in the Civil War with the Confederate, and he named him by name. When you go to Louisiana, you have the First National Guard. All of us is a famous picture that fighting on the Confederate. This story, Robert E. Lee, these different generals that they talking about, they have statues and made them YT people. All of these people were us. And I'm only saying that because it's so much, the families are coming back and saying, hey man, this is my family. They might have a YT side to them, but they are not in connection with them. And in some cases, they're the bloodline that actually, got the inheritance, by way of what we spoke about earlier of them in the breed to keep it. Now, this is a Masonic secret. All the treaties were signed by Masonic people. That state of mind, like I say, the Boule was created this, and his son go off and live his life. So they hit the well through that. You know what I'm saying? But for the Confederate flag, that was us. You had the Chickamauga Indians. Again, they sported the Confederate flag. They pushed down in the South. They became Southerners with their Creek allies, their Creek cousins, and fought against U.S. expansion.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Let's keep this thing going. He might have mentioned this. I think you mentioned this during your presentation. This individual said, ask him, do he know about the Seminoles that fled to the Bahamas? I was just reading about them.
Yeah. I spoke about that in the bill.
Yeah, he talked about that. If you rewind, he mentioned that he had an elaborate presentation and he went into that family. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Let's keep this thing going. Do you know about the Spanish Black Codes, nor and what it did regarding properties and keeping the families together?
So watch this here. So Code Nor read, boom, Alhambra decree. The Columbus and them have to the Moors get put out Iberian Peninsula, and their allies, which would be the Sephardi Jews, they'll be put out too. So a guy named Salvador Fernando Zarco, whose mother name is Isabel Zarco, whose dad's name is Giles Zarco, who is right-hand man to Henry the Navigator of Portugal, and the king of Portugal is going to be Alfonso IV. He's going to have a brother named Ferdinand II, Duke of Beja, in Cuba, Portugal. And they're going to have a son named Ferdinand Salvador Ferdinand Zarco. In history, he would become known as Christopher Columbus.
Mm.
Well, he will be trained, he will be sent to Ferdinand and Isabel. They didn't pay the money, like a lot of historians been telling us. What they did was put him in connection with an Irish guy who had the maps to sell. This Irish guy name is Patrick McGuire. Y'all making me give up my good shit. Y'all gonna have to go get my book, man. Y'all making me go into my shit. Y'all have to go get my book.
Let me see the book. Let me see the book.
Oh yeah, like I got
Black Indian. The what they say? The miseducation of Black Americans. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not Black. I'm in miseducation. And this my second great grandma on the oldest reservation in Texas, right there.
Mm.
Yeah, I have children books too, man. I also got a gift for you too, bro.
Oh, I got my PO box, right? You told me, yeah, right.
Yeah, I also have a gift for you.
Appreciate it, man.
Let's get that open. Let's get that open right there.
Oh, that's fire. Wow, damn, bro. Okay. That's your joint? That's your brand?
Yeah, Big Chief University, BigChiefUniversity.com.
Oh,
y'all want to support, but this right here for you, brother Rich.
Appreciate it, my brother. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing the books and all of that too. But yeah, for the Black codes, so Columbus Columbus them will go to Haiti. In the 1680s, they'll come down with codes that will kick. If you're not banging Catholicism, you got to leave, and that's the code in New York. That's the first one. So the Sephardic Jews had to leave. This is another thing that let us know that they were melanated people because they called the Black codes. Well, those people that came with Columbus, they had to leave. The Jews, they had to leave. So Columbus is what you call a Moreno. A Moreno means dark. Columbus was a melanated brother. He was a Sephardic Jew. I could break his whole family tree down. Like I just told you, his mom and daddy was, his granddaddy. We can go through the whole thing on a different one. Now, you might be speaking of code New York that happened in Louisiana. Again, like I said, that French empire. We got to think about empires. These are kingdoms brought together, empires. Just so you got Haiti, you got Louisiana, New Orleans, you got Chicago, you got Congo in Africa, you got France, you got these different places, right? The Acadians coming down into Louisiana and things like this. But yeah, the Code New York also happened inside of Louisiana as well. And far as regarding the properties, yeah, it was Creole families that were there. They had class systems, which Creole was on top. And yeah, they did seize a lot of land, but a lot of those people were slave masters. So look into South Carolina slave masters, and you'll see how the slave masters, even in the Revolutionary War, when they fought in the Confederate, they went to go fight to preserve their land. They were landowners, so that's why they suited up for the Confederate. And then later they joined the Union, though. After the U.S. made them a deal they couldn't refuse, told them they're better to keep the land, they traded over. But yeah, a lot of them were slave owners.
Mm-hmm. Next question. This might be the last one. Can you explain the context of the Moroccan-American Treaty of Friendship?
Y'all niggas trying to give me a joke. All right, Popeye, this is what we're doing with it, man. So the U.S. was coming into their own. You know, you're going to go to the Continental Congress 1 and 2, which was given to them by Constantine. Look it up, on the Dogger Indian. The 17, in order to be recognized as a country, it take another country to do it. At that time, it's a trade agreement. In order for the U.S. to trade in the ports of Morocco or the Iberian Peninsula with safety to them. How do we know that? Because the 1790 Sundry Act is going to come, which people, foreigners who are going to be caught, brought to South Carolina, And due to that peace and friendship treaty, they're gonna have to be handled a certain type of way because of this agreement we have. But later the border wars will come because they're gonna end up jacking the U.S. ships anyway, testing their naval might. It wasn't until they got down south in those Gulf Coast and those Choctaw and those coastal Indians, their naval bases got involved. The U.S. became a powerful naval base. And as we see today, they named they vessels, then they equipment, military equipment after American Indian names.
Right. Oh man, I think we're gonna wrap it up there, man. Big Chief Topcatz, man. I want to thank you for coming. Made your debut, my brother. Black Magic 3. See, we still got 2,000 people in here listening, man, and that's good. That means that they're staying. It's interesting, and they stayed the whole time, man. So that's dope. Amazing presentation tonight. I thought I was on the screen. Yeah, amazing presentation tonight, my brother. What can you leave any info that you want to leave? So for those who want to get in contact, buy your book or anything, get in contact with you, leave your info, my brother.
Yeah, man, bigchiefuniversity.com.
Yeah.
Big Chief University, bigchiefuniversity.com. You can follow me on YouTube, Legendary Topcatz. And yeah, man, appreciate y'all for listening. Appreciate y'all coming through the bill. Make sure y'all keep supporting Brother Rich. He been going for a long time. It's crazy. I never wanted to be a teacher, Rich. I ain't never think I'd be in this position. And I used to sit there, I'm driving trucks and I'm listening to the long bills, the old Phil Valentine's and all that. Have you seen that conversation with me and Phil Valentine?
Nah. When was this?
Last year. Phil Valentine said, I'm passing you the baton.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, Phil Valentine said, you getting it. Yeah. Keep waking them out of there. You getting the baton. Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta send me that. Send me that when you get a chance.
Taj Tariq Bey. And everything on this Indian conversation, because I'm standing on Indian business. I just want to get an understanding. It ain't nothing nigga. I got much love for Taj. But what was the guy that hung with Taj though? I always used to be with Taj.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Some L Bay. I can't think his name. Now me and him, we got in the ring. Okay. I knocked out Jabari when I was a rookie. I debated Jabari. And he was supposed to be in the Mayweather, and they brought me there to lose, and I seen you there too. Yeah, I mopped him in the crowd.
Sarnetta might say otherwise, because he say Jabari's undefeated. So
you know what Sai did? Sai called me. He said, "Hey, bro, you over here beating Jabari on the pole.
Man,
come screenshot this." He said, "Come screenshot it," and I screenshotted it, and I won 51-49. Home field advantage. They had
Yeah, shout out to Sarnetta. I know they be talking shit over there. They be calling y'all pretendians over there.
Nah, you know what? I got Sai. Sai started banging Indian when I went up against the Hebrews in the debate. I was like, "Yeah, I'm Indian too." He ride with me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. They be wilding out over there. Shout out to Sarnetta. Let me ask you: have you ever had a debate or got into anything verbally with the Red Indians, with them hearing you saying you're Indian and them saying you trying to claim what we are, and you like, nigga,
I've been a Native American court. They tried to call me to court before on them other platforms, like TikTok and Clubhouse, them international platforms. I had plenty of conversations with them. I crushed them. They don't know American history. The history that they have is somebody else told it to them. No different than the African slave trade. Like, we took it full circle, didn't even look. We just regurgitated. We read the same books that they told us to read, not even understanding that it was, whole propaganda pushed behind it. Well, they was done the same way. And so when I talk to them, I let them know about the Pacific slave trade and how they actually got to the Americas. So maybe I can come back one day and do that, and we can talk about how they got here and who they are. And I crush them every time. But I will say this here: it was a lot of elders in there, and I got it on tape. But they respect, you know, they. It was so because the people that's with me, you gotta know we gonna be on our genealogy. That's our foundation. You know, we walk with our ancestors. So to do this is only one way to be in that's bloodline, and you're gonna have to show up with a purpose, and you have to show up genealogy. And your genealogy, your purpose better be lined with your genealogy. So it's a personal journey and it's a spiritual. That's why I always say genealogy is the highest form of spirituality, because you don't worship anything outside yourself. You worship that in which you come from. And so when we come in the room, the red, I wouldn't even call them the red one, because we the red people. Look at us. Them niggas ain't red, them niggas pale. We the red people. Shout out to Red Pill, man. We got that one instead. I would be considered a redskin. Brother Rich would be considered a redskin. You're a copperish red tone.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we come in there and they hear us. They don't have the records. We'll get to put in records. Boom, 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 boom. They can't do that. So yeah, so they are lost. But yeah, I'd love to come back and show who they are and where they come from.
Yo, you know we should arrange, bro. I gotta talk to you on the phone. I wanna arrange the biggest group hike up Stone Mountain ever. So like say I bring my people from my channel, you could bring your people from your channel, and we gonna get I gotta get Rod to leave his house, man.
We gotta get Rod out.
We gonna somebody gotta go pick up Rod.
We going to get Rod. We got people in Chicago. We got people everywhere. You know,
Rod, we coming. They coming to get you, man. But we got to do that. We got to go Stone Mountain, man.
You know Dan Calloway?
I heard him. Yeah, I heard him.
Heard of him, right? So yeah, man. I'm with it, because he was on my channel today. He like, man, we got to get something done this year. But yeah, man, like I said, I've done 15 group tours, so yeah, we ready to pop out, and we love Atlanta. So that'll be big. And like I told you the other day, I never been. I still never been.
Right.
So that'll be my first. Yeah, I love that one. Whenever you ready, we can start getting the word out.
Yeah, we'll probably do it. Will we in March? I would say
heat up.
Maybe in May, y'all. Maybe April or May. For either April or May. I'm gonna talk to Rod Hayes too. I'm gonna see what Rod.
Right, come out, Unc. He was in the chat. I seen him down in the chat.
Yeah.
What up, Unc? You gotta come through, bro. We gotta come. If you ain't gotta catch a plane, we'll drive you all the way from wherever you at, man, to Atlanta. Make sure you get there back, man.
I ain't fucking with them planes, man. I done try to get him on the plane. He ain't fucking.
I already know. That's why I said. We gonna get you a Sprinter van, man. We bring you down there in a Sprinter.
Oh man, but yo, I had a great time in the show. Like I said, that's something that I'm more of a metaphysics guy than a history guy, so I gotta listen to that again. That was very interesting. So I'm gonna thoroughly listen to that. Like I said, like your brothers, y'all got me researching my family tree, my genealogy. So I salute y'all. Y'all got me researching now. Like I'm finding out my family used to work on the railroad and shit. I'm looking up shit. So I salute y'all brothers for doing that, and y'all got me looking into
that. That's the real knowledge of self.
They
taught us this worldly history was knowledge of self, but it didn't teach us nothing about ourselves. So that's why I just say, man, these dudes think they so smart. They can tell you about 10,000 years ago, but they can't even tell you who their third great grandma is. And that's sad, you know. And so we really weak when we thinking we strong. And just imagine if people would have put 20, 30 years into teaching us about American, how far we would have been, you know what I'm saying, instead of having to be behind the 8-ball and play catch up. You know.
My brother, you know Turtle Gang?
Yeah.
Turtle Gang used to tell me about that. We know all this ancient history, but we don't know our great grandmother and all that. He used to always tell me that. So yeah, shout out to all of y'all.
Shout out to Turtle. Turtle, he don't really fuck with me, but Turtle really a good dude.
Why y'all be beefing, man? If y'all
Turtle is, man. Come on, man. You know how Turtle is. Turtle really a good dude, though.
Turtle, he's a serious
dude. Yeah, he passionate.
Yeah, passionate. That's the word I would say. But I'm gonna get us together, man. I'm gonna invite him out there to the Stone Mountain, because we ain't got nothing. I don't think we don't have no real reason to beef with each other about.
Ah, man.
You know what I'm saying?
Me and Turtle went through it. Then I ended up going over there. We got cool. And then Turtle was Turtle again. But, Turtle a good dude.
Turtle was turtling. Turtle was turtling.
Turtle was turtling, man. There you go. You know what I'm saying? It's been a couple years now. I already know how he is. He we'll bump heads, and then the more he'll knock on the door. Hey, what's up? You want to go shoot hoops? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he just turtling, man. He on this little nappy shit,
Right. Shout out to all of y'all for what y'all bring to the table. And like I said, we're gonna make this trip to Stone Mountain big, y'all. We're gonna make this trip to Stone Mountain real big. Stay tuned for that. Hey, I'm gonna talk to you. I'm gonna give you a call. What's today? What the fuck is it? Today's Monday. I'm gonna give you a call late in the week. And just to, I gotta get you back on the show. So I'm definitely gonna get you back on within a month, probably the top of April. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, great show, my brother. And I'm gonna talk to you. Somebody said bring Dane Calloway. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, I talked to Dane about 2 years ago, and I was supposed to have him on the show. And I just lost contact with the brother. He asked me to just what did I want to talk about specifically, and that's when I just moved to Georgia, and it was on the Instagram. I didn't get back to him. So shout out to Dane, but I never I got to get back in touch with him. So maybe I could contact him through you.
Yeah, that's easy work. Yeah.
Topcatz, But hey, with that being said, shout out to everybody. Make sure y'all go support this brother, what he got going on. Amazing show tonight, family. We getting out of here. Have a good night. I'm talking soon. Peace, family.